convening a safety summit tomorrow between nervous business leaders and law enforcement. CNN has learned the safety concerns among executives are so widespread, New York State may create a special hotline just for CEOs to call in threats.
That's right. They might do a snitch hotline for CEOs to be like, excuse me, I laid off 30% of my workforce, and some of them who lost their livelihoods, you know, people with children, people with families, some of them who lost their health care, got very upset at me. I am now under threat. Can you please send the local law enforcement to pack up the unwashed masses at my doorstep? That's wonderful. I think we should definitely lean into this more. Real cyberpunk vibes here. The meeting is one of several signs that officials are trying to elevate the murder to a matter of domestic terrorism. Commenting on our conversation with Hochul, Weidel said that she wants to make sure that the state resources, specifically the domestic counterterrorism resources, are focused on being supportive, sharing information. If the last year has taught us anything, who are the scariest domestic terrorists in this country? Are they the white supremacist Nazis with manifestos that go and do unlimited violence on marginalized populations? No, of course not. It's gay, non-binary English majors with septum piercings that say Israel is kind of a meanie bobini state. Those are the real terrorists, and the counterterrorism resources must be used against them. And now we must expand the counterterrorism resources to other domestic terrorists, people who are angry about having their insurance claims denied. Do you understand? Wonderful stuff. If you are in any way, shape, or form disruptive or critical of the pre-existing hierarchies that the media apparatus upholds as normal, you are a domestic terrorist, and you must be dealt with through the violent apparatus of the state. This is where we're at. Something to remember.
More than $135,000 has been raised for Luigi Mangioni's legal defense fund. It's a crowdfunding effort started by a group called the December 4th Legal Committee. They write, this is a preemptive legal fundraiser for the suspect allegedly involved in the shooting of United Healthcare CEO. We are not here to celebrate violence, but we do believe in the constitutional right of fair legal representation, unquote. But as for the people donating, well, some of them are full on celebrating Mangioni's actions. One person writes under their $10 donation, I'm quoting here, the shot heard around the nation. We cannot let it be in vain. You made the first stand. Thank you.
They're gonna arrest your moms and dads, dude. I'm not even kidding. They're gonna literally investigate every single person that donates to this and then try to like go after people for donating. This never happened when Rittenhouse killed that guy. I wonder what's the difference. Yeah, I don't recall people, especially because like that one is political, right? What's interesting about this one is like this seemingly transcends politics, regardless of how hard the media is trying to reframe this as like a partisan issue. Like I don't think the Debras and the Barbaras that are angry at United Healthcare or their own private healthcare are like, yeah, I'm a card-carrying leftist, you know? I shouldn't have said political. I should have said partisan from the jump. Every American that's been f***ed over by healthcare, regardless of what their political background is, understands what happened here.
Thinking of the wealthy people running this country. Health insurance has been a scam for far too long, and it needs to change. Stop talking about it and do something. I want to bring in Sam Beard. He is the...
Stop talking and do something doesn't mean like go kill CEOs, dumbasses. It means change the system, move towards a more humane system where profits are not put over the interests of everyday citizens.
What do you say to your critics who think this fundraiser is co-signing that murder?
Well, at the end of the day, every American has a right to a fair trial. And I think for every person who might be, exhibiting some sense of joy, there are 10 people sort of asking the question, well, who's the real murderer in this conversation? You know, we're talking about the largest and most successful private health insurance corporation in the history of humankind, right, which is successful precisely because they generate profits by denying claims, among other things. Just to quote one donor here directly, quote, "We do not condone murder, and for that reason, we cannot condone the actions of United Healthcare." Luigi was standing up to a systematized murder of millions of Americans at the hands of a broken healthcare system.
When you hear that, of course, first of all, I'm a former prosecutor. Everyone deserves a proper legal defense, and frankly, he is presumed innocent at this point in time. They have a burden of proof that they have to carry out. But when there seems to be the equivalence drawn between gunning somebody down in the streets, and again, he is presumed innocent, but somebody gunning him down in the streets, and then the idea of a health insurance company.
Yeah, it's arguably worse. This is what people don't understand. When your grandma's like, oh, I can't get chemotherapy because it's too expensive and insurance won't cover it, I guess I'll just die. That's murder. So yeah, the CEOs that contribute to that profit off of that, you can systematize that murder as much as you want, but they are responsible. That's so crazy that these guys are like, but what do you mean? To the average person who has experienced the death of a loved one because of this, they don't give a to the average person whose life was ruined because they had to go through medical bankruptcy, they don't give a fuck. Oh, that's just the way the system is? Okay, well, I guess we live in a cruel system, so there's nothing you can do about it.
Behaving in the way that has led to, you believe, the deaths of people as well. Are you concerned that that sort of equivalence is going to instigate further harm?
Yeah, that's a good question. As a moral matter, it's horrible when anybody has their life cut short by another person, especially when it could have been prevented, right? But that same logic has to apply both ways. A CEO had his life short, a world-renowned CEO for being very effective in his field, mind you, but he was effective because he profited from denying people's claims, which cut their lives short. So we can't just apply a simple moral rule without acknowledging that we're in an immoral system that degrades the value of some lives while elevating the value of others. And I think what's sort of plain as day at this point is challenging that is, above all, a political act.
This is a great take. I mean, he's just popping off. But yeah, it's the contract hitman defense. I had a fiduciary responsibility to carry out this assassination. Like, what do you mean? That wouldn't work in a court of law. You know what I mean? You can't just be like, sorry, I had to carry out tens of thousands of murders because like that was my job.
And when we treat it only as a moral act, I think we're plugging our ears to its political meaning.
I'm learning, though, that one of Mangione's lawyers told my network that he would not accept the money. So what will your group do with it?
So I'm wondering if that's the conversation that happened about a week ago. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Has there been a recent development that you think he will take the money?
No, but there's been a recent development in terms of sort of an expanded legal team. So I would imagine there's different decision makers in that process. And we have yet to establish two-way communication with their newest legal team. We have contacted them via telephone, email, and good old-fashioned snail mail.
That was fantastic. That was a fantastic redirection, talking about like the inhumanity of the system that we live under. I mean, it was fantastic.
Well, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam Beard.
Thank you.
Well, Mangione is expected to be in court next week. We're not exactly sure how his lawyers plan on defending him specifically, but we are getting some clues. I want to bring in Charles Patrick Ewing. He is a board-certified...
I'm going to be honest, I'm shocked that they even had this person on. Do you think the jury will convict him? I think that they will find the best possible jury to convict him. It'll be tough, but they'll do it.
Joey, let me begin with you. Can you first quickly explain to us why Mangione has a second-degree murder charge as opposed to a first-degree charge in New York?
Yeah, Laura, good to be with you. So what happens is that in New York State, first-degree murder is reserved for the killing of a police officer, a peace officer, a judge, a correction officer, a first responder. You don't generally get first-degree murder unless it pertains to one of those issues. The only other conceivable way that it could be first-degree is if it's in furtherance of some act of terrorism, which could be a viable charge, depending upon, of course, what authorities continue to find with respect to that is Luigi Mangione's state of mind, mindset as it relates to the act of crime. Murder in the second degree, however, is preserved for everything else, and that is intentional murder.
Cops are a special class, dude. You know they had to add EMTs and firefighters and on there specifically so that it's just not cops. I love that. Like, they write this stuff specifically to protect cops.
We're getting some hints as to what Mangione's defense could possibly look like. How hard is it to get this kind of insanity plea or an extreme emotional disturbance plea, if he gets offered a plea at all, to have this line of thinking?
It's extremely difficult
Dominate the zone.
about an insanity
Peace,
defense,
of course.
especially in New York State.
taking
In New York
zone
State,
A.
the burden of proof is on the defendant to prove, first of all, that he was suffering from a mental illness or
the
from a
zone.
mental defect, as the law says. Once you have that, then you have to establish to the jury's satisfaction that you either did not know the nature and consequences of your acts, or you did not know that your acts were wrong. About maybe somewhere less than 1% of all criminal cases go to trial with insanity plea. They almost never result in a finding of insanity. It's so difficult to get that finding from a jury.
Yeah, the irony here is that given that it is a manifesto, chatters are talking about how this guy is, free him. He didn't know what he was doing. He was mentally ill or whatever as a joke. It makes it much more difficult when you have a manifesto that you wrote on your premeditated murder, allegedly, especially if the manifesto itself features like fairly commonplace problems. Like you can have a manifesto allegedly that's like this scramblings of a madman. Even that 15-year-old girl could probably, you could make a case that that further proved that this person was not mentally sane. The problem is his manifesto is too sane. It's not only so sane, but also what was written in the manifesto is seemingly captured the attention of many Americans.
Some people online casting Luigi Mangione in a positive light as they air their grievances with the industry. Barry Weiss, editor of the Free Press, is here now. Good morning to you.
Oh no! Barry Weiss, free speech, Barry Weiss, very free speech, but not like that, Barry Weiss. I'll tell you what it is. It's not that people celebrate the act of murder. They understand that it's instability. Murder in broad daylight is a symptom of a deeply unstable society. The problem is they also are living in a deeply unstable society where social murder is commonplace. So for them, this is just a pressure valve. For many people, they see this as a moment and be like, oh, well, I don't give a they f***ed me over, so who cares? It's that simple.
Where's this going?
Well, I think one thing that's important to keep in mind, and that Charles Layman writes about in that piece that you just cited, is to kind of remind people that this killing of Brian Thompson is part of a pattern of normalized political violence over the past decade or so. You have Steve Scalise, the attempted assassination.
I think there's nothing crazier than this fucking freak talking about the normalization of political violence. Bitch, you're the most pro-Israel person on the planet. So what are you talking about? She's like directly responsible for the assassination of Rafat al-Raer. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. She's like, how much unrestricted ultra-violence has she defended? Aggressively demanded more of. It's crazy.
Assassination. You have Gabby Giffords. You have the violent rioting of the BLM summer that was normalized as fiery but mostly peaceful, unforgettably by CNN. You have, of course, January 6th. You have the pro-Hamas riots. You have protests, right?
Pro-Hamas riots? The f*** are you talking about? Bro, you can't compare January 6th to pro-Hamas protests. Like, you cannot. I mean, she can, and she will. January 6th is like very clearly an insurrection against the federal government. You cannot turn around and be like, the anti-Israel protests, the peaceful encampments are equivalent to January 6th.
My point is that we have normalized an ideology that suggests...
I like that she's saying, like, things are either objectively violent or I just disagree with the protests and therefore I will call them riots.
Suggests that certain people, because of their identity, because of their jobs, or because of their political outlook, are somehow ripe and, in fact, justifiable targets for violence. The very same group of people, Bill and Dana, who like to tell us that silence is violence, are going out and justifying the cold-blooded murder of a father of two. How do you make sense of that? And the only way you make sense of it is if you understand that they are operating from a...
Yeah, the only right-wing violence that she mentioned, none of the f***ing mass shootings that have happened, where the shooters are like, I love being a right-winger. I'm writing a manifesto about how I love being a white nationalist. I love Donald Trump, and that's why I'm trying to kill as many black and brown people as possible. And it's like crazy that none of that is a prominent fixture in the way that Americans understand political violence. And it's actually one mention of January 6th, not even mentioning Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, getting hammered in the head by DePipi. Like, god damn. I said this yesterday, but you didn't see it. This will also backfire because terrorists won't be seen as Arabs anymore, and manufacturing consent for bombing the Middle East won't be as easy anymore. No, I do find it really strange that, like, you have white supremacist shooters that openly write manifestos to do, like, hate crimes and shit. And and conduct lone wolf style acts of stochastic terror that directly say that they're doing this because they want to instigate a race riot or a race war or whatever. And in most of those circumstances, they do not get slapped with the terrorism charge. There are certain instances where they have been, but in many of those circumstances, they don't get slapped with terrorism. Now, those are different states that they're prosecuted in. Obviously, New York is different. I guess for the extreme centrists, like, it makes sense. If your position across the board is that, like, the system is good and it's just simply designed the way it is, and if people die in the process for profit healthcare, then they die, you know? It is what it is. We have actually segmented out this violence to the best of our ability so that it seems invisible, so that it seems normal, and this person actually, struck back against that violence, and therefore he must be squashed, he must be killed, he must be jailed permanently because that is disruptive. There are a lot of people who feel that way, for sure. Any number of different things that make money in the United States of America, or at least as a mechanism of control, you will get slapped as, you will get branded as a terrorist. That is what the government truly fears. That's what the government fears more than the actual white supremacist domestic terrorists. Like, every now and then they do a little bit of violence, and the violence is actually really, it's horrifying, right? But in their perspective, it's just like, yeah, okay, well, they killed some black people in church, who cares? We'll prosecute this person, we'll do our job, but overall, that is nowhere near as disruptive to the regular order of business. White supremacist acts of violence are not disruptive to the regular order of business in the way that, like, someone waking up a lot of people to the reality of for-profit healthcare is. The Department of Justice charged Dylan Roof with murder in the commission of a hate crime, but not domestic terrorism. The Department of Justice charged Dylan Roof, the white 21-year-old man who allegedly gunned down 9 black churchgoers in Charleston, South Carolina on June 17th with murder, attempted murder, and the use of a firearm, all in the commission of a hate crime. But the DOJ did not charge Roof with domestic terrorism or include terrorism in the indictment. Some media outlets, lawyers, public figures, and activists have called for Roof to be charged, not just with a hate crime, an illegal act motivated in whole or in part by an offender's bias, but with the separate label of domestic terrorism, because it was a white supremacist act of domestic terrorism. Critics contend that the label of terrorism is too often only applied to Islamic extremists and not white supremacists or anti-government anarchists. Many were outraged after FBI Director James Comey balked at the term during a June 20th press conference, telling reporters he didn't see the murders as a political act, a requirement he designated as necessary for terrorism. Roof's crimes certainly seem to fit the federal description of domestic terrorism, which the FBI defines as activities that involve acts dangerous to human life that violate federal or state law, appear intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. Roof allegedly told a few friends that he intended the murder of the parishioners, attendees of the historically black Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, to start a race war. Now, this was all the way back in 2015. As you know, there's no specific domestic terrorism statute, said Lynch during the press conference to announce Roof's indictment. Even when the USA Patriot Act post 9/11 redefined terrorism to include domestic crimes, the provision simply allowed the government to investigate more broadly what it called terrorism. Actually, charging someone with domestic terrorism remains a separate matter. Even criminals who use bombs or send money to ISIS or Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev are not charged with a crime of terrorism. Seen pleads guilty to terrorism and murder charges. So since then, there have been people like, I believe this is Ethan Crumbly, right? Yeah. Pled guilty to 1 count of terrorism causing death, 4 counts of first-degree murder, and 19 other charges stemming from November 30th mass shooting at Oxford High School. And obviously, there's a distinction between state charges and federal charges. So since then, they've actually started applying, at least in certain states, domestic terrorism as an additional factor. Domestic terrorism as a practical application certainly fits the criteria for many of these white supremacists, neo-Nazi school shooters, mass shooters in general. And I feel like the criteria being general harm to the overall public makes it a little bit more difficult, in my opinion, for terrorism charges to stick to Luigi Mangione, because I think his argument overall, if I'm thinking about it, like, it's going to be difficult to prove that he wanted other people to also go out and, like, kill CEOs. That's number one. Number two, there's a direct through line of, like, harm harm that was done to him in the way that he saw it, and it's more so a revenge killing, right? At most, it more so fits the purpose of like I mean, it's premeditated murder. It's an act of vengeance rather than an act of terrorism.
There was some DJ that had a set over the weekend, and there were just giant flashing photos of Luigi Mangione, and the crowd is going wild for it.
Right.
There's something like very, very rotten in a culture where that has become not just acceptable, but somehow like cool.
So how do we turn it around?
We re-stigmatize political violence, and we shame, frankly, any person that is trying to contextualize.
Yeah, Barry White gets to say that while simultaneously championing Israel's genocide, by the way. Because that's not considered political violence. That's just foreign policy, you know? That's just American foreign policy. It's the norm. It has to happen. This is so stupid, dude. You can't expect people to not feel a sense of vengeance and relief. It's not correct. I understand it on principle. Unlike Barry White, I am a humanitarian, but I'm also not shocked by this reality. I'm not shocked that people look to someone like Brian Thompson as a placeholder for the violence that they've experienced in their lives.
Something that there's no context that makes this acceptable. You murdered a person that is the father of two.
People like you.
Full stop. That's it.
Yeah, Osama bin Laden had kids too, man. He was also a dad. You think I give a what happens to him? You also literally advocated for the death of Refat al-Ra'ar, who also had children. His entire family was wiped out by Israel, the country that you seemingly always defend and forget your free speech first principles for on a regular basis when it's about advocating to block, ban, and ruin the lives of Palestinian demonstrators. So CNN, wait, never mind. Okay, CNN actually has a new take on Luigi Mangione. Apparently, attorneys explaining terrorism might have overextended the prosecutor's office.
Tell us more about what Mr. Bragg had to say.
Look, I mean, essentially what they're calling this by these charges, Jake, is this was an act of terrorism. They feel that they have enough evidence based on the writings that they were able to obtain from the defendant, Luigi Mangione, that indicates that this was all about fear.
It is kind of wild to call this terrorism because he killed a CEO.
I do think this is so unprecedented to see this kind of charge being brought here from the DA's office in Manhattan. But there's still a lot more work to do here. And the DA, of course, reminding folks not to forget about Brian Thompson and his family.
And Shimon, we're also...
Bro, this is like, I know I was joking about people of means, like people of wealth, being like a subcategory, an additional protected class, but we kind of are getting there. It is kind of wild. Like, they wanted to really punish Luigi Mangione. They wanted to, like, make an example out of him. So they kind of hit him with the book. And I guess the argument will revolve around terrorism. And maybe the reason why they put terrorism in the forefront of the argument is to maybe goad him into demonstrating that he had a political purpose behind it. Because I'm thinking about, like, why you prosecute him as not like simple murder, simple premeditated murder, but instead terrorism. Because, like, they got him dead to rights on you know, premeditated murder, right? Like, in New York State, it's second-degree murder. It's not first degree. First degree is for, you know, peace officers and whatnot. But you can escalate it to first-degree murder if a terrorism designation is slapped onto it, as far as I understand. But it's kind of weird because it is definitely overreach. Having said that, I guess, like, it's interesting because maybe they think he is, like, maybe they're convinced that he is so politically minded that he will follow through on it and will offer them additional evidence in an effort to have his voice be heard by Americans. He will say, like, no, yeah, this was inherently a political act of violence. Does that make sense? Because in order to defeat the terrorism charge, he has to kind of just be like, I don't know why I was writing that piece of paper, the manifesto or whatever. Does that make sense? Because if he stands by the manifesto, then he gives them the allowance to lean into the terrorism charge. Because, like, you wrote that because you wanted copycats. You wrote that because you wanted to terrify the public or whatever. But then again, I don't know how the prosecution of terrorism really works because, as I've said before, it is a political designation that has no legal standing, like no real, well-definable legal standing. That's why dumbasses like HCC will, like, write under my Twitter post about Luigi Mangione getting a slap of terrorism charges a Google definition of it. He said, after thorough research, I found this. Terrorism is a technically meaningless classification. There is no real universally defined definable, applicable standard of terrorism. Because if there was one, America would be the top disher of terrorism, the number one responsible party of terrorism. Take the L, Hassan, lol. What? Yeah, I know, I took the L here. I haven't spent countless hours and an endless amount of reading on the political designation of terror and how it is used as a mechanism to deny habeas corpus from the average person that is apprehended by the American state, and how it is an arbitrary distinction, which is precisely the reason why even most legal bodies will not offer the designation of terrorism with the same willingness that, like, the United States of America applies certain militant groups, the classification of terrorism. That is part of the reason why you don't see every single country declare Hezbollah as a terror organization in the way that America has. Because they're, like, I mean, even in Lebanon, Hezbollah is also a political party within the parliament. There's no real consensus on this matter whatsoever. And people kind of just go off of vibes. Even having said that, though, the standard is hard to apply to Luigi Mangione as well. There was another person who actually sent me a link. Oh, Cornell, Article 490, crime of terrorism in New York State. New York State's definition of crime of terrorism. A person is guilty of a crime of terrorism when, with the intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, or affect the conduct of a unit of government by murder, assassination, or kidnapping, he or she commits a specific offense. This is in the state of New York, the crime of terrorism. I mean, it's definitely a dangerous precedent, I think, in terms of, like, denying other people their civil liberties, denying people their First Amendment rights in general. I mean, this can be seen as expansive and broad and purposefully vague, in my opinion, where you can just simply say, well, you know, this is someone who is a terrorist, so if you've said something, if you've given money to a GoFundMe for the shooter, for the shooter's, like, court case, you're technically, you know, funding and facilitating terrorism, things like that. And it's kind of funny because obviously every single person has been wronged by whether it's their ISPs or whether it is for-profit healthcare or whether it's a airline company or whatever. Like, it just, the normal process of capitalism and the constant profit seeking creates corner cutting, creates worse products overall, worse products that you're paying for and oftentimes paying more money for, right? And in that process you get mad. And, like, obviously it doesn't have to be murder in this regard, but, like, any kind of anger that you demonstrate in that process is just terrorism now. Like, you are not allowed to get mad at this at all. Meanwhile, those very same fighting words or far more severe threats are often done not against corporations, but against other fellow Americans, and there is no prosecution for that whatsoever. First-degree murder is a prosecutorial overreach, but could so easily backfire. The prosecution now has to make that case, and in doing so, healthcare is now an issue at trial. They've opened that door to making this a circus. I know, which is why I said in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, before we knew the motive, before we knew anything, just the victim, I said that arresting this person and then putting forth a highly publicized, highly televised trial will inevitably make this a much larger issue for healthcare in this country, for profit healthcare in this country, because when people immediately looked at the situation, they understood what the motives were before they even knew what the motives were. And this would give him a universal platform to say, this is what is at stake here. Let's continue.
From the suspect's lawyer on the New York extradition.
That's right. So his newly hired lawyer here in Manhattan, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, is telling us that he's not going to fight extradition. So it could be, Jake, that on Thursday we expect to see Luigi Mangione in court.
If you want to understand the nature of language, the nature of political language, and how sometimes certain designations are used to hide and omit key details, this photo in and of itself is a perfect definition or a perfect demonstration of what I'm talking about. Taking advantage of the downtime between electoral college meetings to work on advancing my bill to make sure no political flags are flown in government buildings. If you know, you know. He's standing in front of an Israeli flag. Jewish and proud Zionist, speak for myself, not the state of Florida. Senator Randy Fine.
Let's go. Let's go.
You understand? The Israeli flag is not a political one, but But I suspect if someone had an Iranian flag, they would consider that to be a political one. The Cuban flag is a political one. The Venezuelan flag is a political one. The Israeli flag is not. Do you understand?
To dismiss the top count of murder one, and that would be Karen Agnifilio, because arguing this was a terroristic act when he was on a quiet street in the dark shooting a victim in the back of the head and then intending to influence the whole world about the insurance industry was an unintended consequence of this murder. No one expected the social media.
Hey, it's not his fault. Everybody was like, bro, before they saw the manifesto, if I'm a lawyer, I'm gonna be like, excuse me. People immediately assume that this was a hurting victim of the for-profit healthcare insurance before they even heard of a manifesto, before they even knew who the shooter was. All they needed to know was the victim. It ain't his fault. Cooking.
The disturbing social media outpouring from this act, and to have the district attorney and law enforcement from New York mention that there was a social media outcry in relation to a terroristic act is putting the cart before the horse. I mean, the murder happened first, the outcry was second, and totally unpredictable. So I think this might be a case of overreaching on a murder one. I could see why they have enough evidence, or they believe, law enforcement, that they have enough evidence for murder to...
Didn't his manifesto literally state he chose to shoot because he was concerned about bystanders? That would be premeditation of not do terrorism. Yeah, basically, they're trying to say that, like, this person wanted other people to be copycats and go out and shoot other for-profit healthcare CEOs, and therefore creating an unstable environment. That's what the argument is from the prosecution, but, like, it is a bit of an overreach, in my opinion. It's win-win regardless, because if they hit it on that angle, which they obviously are, then all of a sudden the party that's supposed to represent the quote-unquote people, right, the prosecutors, are going to have to defend the healthcare industry and for-profit healthcare CEOs. That already causes, in my opinion, a big divergence between the actual people and what their opinions are. So it ends up amplifying this message further, and also it gives more opportunity to his defense to create reasonable doubt. I told you, man, people, especially liberals who still get their notes from mainstream press, are so mallineable. Like, they'll have their own perspective on this immediately. They'll be like, yeah, I don't really give a shit about this. Who cares? Like, these guys have fucked me over or whatever. And then a week's worth of people just going, don't do this. This is really bad. You should feel angry about, the chaos. And immediately they snap back to the fucking sheep-like mentality that they have. It's liberals especially. Like, conservatives do this too, for sure. But I totally get how liberals have, like, snapped into this, like, idea that, Luigi Mangione is no hero. He is a bad guy. Fox News is already blasting that nonstop. It's coming from virtually every outlet.
Jones got trespassers. Capturing. Capture zone contested.
Alrighty, well, hello, sinners, and welcome back to day 7 of the 12 days.
Where's the fan, motherfucker?
I sound like Jeffree Star when I say that. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back to the 12 days of Sinmas. I'm seated, I'm gagged.
Iconic. You just need the long acrylics. And I'm here with Jeffree Star's biggest fan, Nikki Carrion.
Hello, hi. It's so good to be here at Sinmas. I'm so ready. I have the Santa hat out. I'm seated.
Hell yeah. This is your second Sinmas.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, yes. You're my first repeat guest on Sinmas, and I'm very excited to show you the content.
I can't believe I'm the only revisiting one. What is happening here?
I can't get enough of this cringy parent content, and you're the only one I can get through.
To a new spot.
Hell yeah. I'm so scared. I'm shaking in my boots like it really is Christmas Eve.
Except this isn't a gift. This is anything but that. Speaking of gifts, what would you like to give my sinners for the 7th day of the 12 days of Sacrifice?
I would love to give each and every one of you a framed photo of the United Healthcare CEO shooter. Very handsome. Love to put it on your wall and just reminisce of these trying times of 2024.
I don't condone murder, but if I did,
I don't condone murder either. But I'm just saying I don't hate the guy.
a vigilante.
I'm not saying he's kind of cool, but if I did say that, would you forgive me? And if you wouldn't, then I'm just kidding. I did.
Right. This is all hypothetical in Minecraft, by the way.
Right.
But as a lovely follow-up to our boy mom video from last year, I wanted to show you some girl dads. I want to explore the girl dad side of the internet. I feel like girl dads aren't spoken about enough, or at least with like this specific vernacular. Like it's always boy mom, not girl dad.
That's so true. Maybe that's yet another case of misogyny.
Shall we just jump into it and look at some actual girl dads? Have you ever been to medieval times?
Yes, I have. I grew up right next to one.
I have one like an hour away from my place, so it's like kind of out there, but like it's always worth going for the tomato bisque alone.
Honestly, it's iconic, dare I say. Like eating without the spoons or the forks and stuff, like bring me back to my primitive natures.
No, like I'm obsessed. It's kind of an issue. But you know the part where the knights like throw the roses in the crowd and it's like fun and it's like, oh cute. Yeah. Like they give it to like the birthday girl or like moms on Mother's Day. Like it's awesome. It's sweet.
Simply how could you possibly make that into an issue?
Unfortunately, when there's a will, there's a way. Unfortunately for this girl dad daughter, she was given a rose by a knight. Get the f ready. So cute.
Really cute. Look how happy she looks.
Yeah. Oh.
Taking his own.
Oh, but he's just like not happy with that. But she's like 5 years old.
I wouldn't even say that. Like, she looks like she's like 2 or 3. That's a young girl.
I have no perception of age. Like, I'm starting to realize that because the other day I looked at a kid and I was like, oh, he's like 12. My fiance goes, that's like a 7-year-old. I'm like, I don't know anymore. I think I'm getting so old where I'm like, oh, that's a little young kid. Like,
right. Yeah, they all kind of look the same, you know, from the ages of like 0 to 22.
I'm somewhere in that age bracket for sure.
Me too.
It's very, very weird, even as a joke, to kind of be mad about that, because I think for a normal person, it wouldn't even like register in their brain that like, oh, this is something that I should be upset about or pretend to be mad about. Like, it's just not even something that registered. It shouldn't be on the roster.
Right. Like, it's usually a very wholesome moment. It's just like, why are you ruining such like a nice family outing?
I think bonding with your daughter should be so special and fun, and you should be so happy for anything, any little special thing that comes her way, especially when she's a kid like that, because those are the fun little things you remember. Like, it's hard to remember a lot of stuff from when you're a kid, when you get older, but like, if you have like a really, really good day with your parent, like, that's a good, like, that's a long-lasting memory. So just be like, he gave my daughter a flower. It's like, dude, shut up. This isn't some random guy on the street that just like slid out of a van. Like, it's not creepy.
It's just a dude doing his job.
Exactly.
That would be like yelling at the waiter for smiling at your daughter.
That's what he's supposed to do. I don't know how to break this to you, Unc. I don't know.
And I'm sure he took other photos and videos from that day, but this TikTok has like 167,000 likes.
There's people that look at that and they go, hell yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, not to just like generalize his entire relationship with his daughter. It's just like a societal issue, you know? Sure, I'm hopeful that he's a good dad in other areas, but like, it's definitely a societal thing to be like weird about.
This 30-year-old theater kid in a night costume is trying to court my 3-year-old daughter. Like, chill.
Yeah.
Chill the f out.
It reminds me of those like onesies that are like, she's the princess, and then the boy one is like, I'm her savior or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's just like,
she's my princess and I have a gun. Like, something along those lines.
Yes, exactly.
I expected the comments to be roasting him, but apparently I'm on the wrong side of TikTok because everyone is just like, you got to defend her honor with a joust and like.
You know what? You might be on the wrong side of TikTok, but we are on the right side of history.
Period. I'll be honest, sinners. Posting 12 videos in 12 days isn't easy. But my new favorite way to unwind after a long day of work is by playing Midas Merge, who are kindly sponsoring today's video. Midas Merge is the mobile game of all mobile games, in my opinion. First of all, it's free to download on Android and iOS, so anyone can dive into this adorable world. Second of all, you'll come across the cutest creatures that you get to nurture from the time they hatch to when they reach their final form. They grow up so fast. You'll also team up with King Midas and Queen Leah to revive the Gardens of Gold, which are under the shadow of Nyx, goddess of the night, who... it's kind of a baddie, not gonna lie. Nyx's mystery will unfold as you merge Sunburst to brighten the garden and release its adorable inhabitants. Don't you want to see this little guy roam free? And throughout the month of December, Midas Merge will feature the Winter Gardens, just in time for the holiday season. From December 5th to December 29th, players can earn seasonal creatures like the adorable winter reindeer and even the super rare polar bear. And let me tell you, I've been putting in work behind the scenes. I don't know if you can see, but almost at level 23, I've had this game for less than a week. I don't have a problem, you have a problem. Unlock festive prize boxes to enhance your main garden and experience the holiday spirit this cinema season. And let me tell you, if you're one of the first 100 people to download Midas Merge using my link below, you'll receive a personalized winter creature with my name on it. I could be in all your gardens right now at the same time. Who wouldn't want that? Again, click the link below to join in on the fun. Thank you so much to Midas Merge for supporting the channel and for keeping me and my sinners entertained this cinema season. Now, let's get back to your scheduled programming. Next, I have a Reddit post, so we're gonna hip-hop back and forth between Reddit and TikTok. The two best platforms, arguably.
Oh, I actually unironically love Reddit. It's my favorite.
No, I use it as like a news source.
It's like a hub of the worst people imaginable and the best. Like, it's just, there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah, it's the worst people and cats. That's what I get on my timeline. I'm on r/cats like it's the morning paper. This one is from 11 years ago from the 2X chromosomes subreddit.
Ooh, 11 years ago. This is bad.
Oh yeah, so 11 years ago, what's that, 2013?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yikes.
Yeah, so this is like for a subreddit for women, which like kind of weird name, but like whatever. Not me being the friend that's too woke again.
I was kind of thinking the same thing. I've seen this Reddit page before, but I was wondering if like they're chill or like not chill based off of the name. Like the name has me raising my eyebrows.
Yeah, they have like a rule here that's like no bigotry, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia. So I think they're probably good, but like the subreddit was also created in 2009, so like
we pardon them. They were probably just like, they probably just didn't really know any better at the time.
Right. Yeah. But the title of this post is, I assume it's from a dude. Of course it is.
Oh.
The title is, how do I give my daughter a dress code without slut shaming her?
How old is the daughter?
Oh, we'll get there. First sentence, I don't agree with slut shaming, but I also don't want my daughter to wear revealing clothing when she gets older. I don't want her to wear short shorts or really low-cut tops. If you had to guess how old she is at the time of writing this, how old do you think she is?
You know, I'm gonna be pessimistic and I'm gonna say like 8 years old.
You're locking it in?
I'm locking it in. I'm gonna say 8 years old. I feel like that's neutral, okay? It's pessimistic, but like it could be a lot worse. So
right,
we'll
like
see.
she's approaching puberty, but she's still pretty young. Like,
yeah. I hope we're not talking about like a 0-year-old.
Fresh out the womb. He's in the hospital chair writing it.
Yeah.
His wife's asleep in the hospital bed.
How do I control what my newborn baby wears?
How do I make sure this onesie's not too revealing? She's only 5 now, but I often wonder about this because she won't be 5 forever. I wouldn't want my son dressing certain ways either if I had one. Like, no offensive words on clothing or those saggy jeans.
All right. I just don't like him, period. Like, he's giving, like, the saggy jeans, too. Like, I don't know. I might be being the friend that's too woke right now, too.
No, do it.
But the saggy jeans, like, it's kind of giving, like, you're a little bit racist. Like, I like,
yes.
My mind, like, straight up, like, goes to that because, like, street style. I don't really like it when people say stuff like that. I'm kind of like, what are you really trying to say? Do you actually not like the pants, or is there something else that you don't like?
But the final line of this is, maybe I will just luck out and that just won't be her style at all. LOL. Imagine she turns out to be like the most masculine lesbian there ever was.
Actually, that would work out perfectly for him. He would never have to say anything.
Although I'm sure butch lesbians can rock some crop tops.
Well, I don't know if this is controversial to say, but it's always like the hottest people ever where they'll be like dressing like super masculine, and then one day you'll like see them in like a tight shirt or something, and you're like, whoa. You're like, awooga. I'm looking respectfully.
Respectfully, right.
Like, I already thought you were like beautiful, but then I was like, whoa. I just like, you know, you're shocked when you like see them in their femme clothes. You're like, whoa.
Right.
The 5-year-old, it's so weird to even be thinking about that. Like, you should be thinking about like what coloring book you're gonna buy her next, not like, is she gonna wear a top that's too short, you know?
She's gonna wear a crop top in 10 years. Like,
honestly, I've never really understood the big issue with crop tops, because unless it's like insanely cropped,
right?
Because most crop tops, the separation between the top and their pants is like that much. And it's like, if you're looking at like kids or even women, like period, and like looking at that little piece of skin and being like, oh, I can't control myself. It's like, go to jail.
Yeah.
Just go to jail.
Maybe part of it does come from the fact that like fathers know how other men are and they're afraid of their daughter being harassed. But then it's like, one, have that conversation with your daughter when the time comes. Perhaps like teach her self-defense or like ways to like be safe. Or 2, raise your sons to not be fucking creeps. Nip the bud when they're young.
That's always a great solution that no one ever seems to want to take. It's kind of like how the government like doesn't want to do things like fund after school programs and stuff like that and give people benefits, and then they're like upset when like crime happens and stuff. It's just like, well, you didn't give anyone anything.
Right, like,
so what did you expect to happen? Someone stole something that needed it? What?
Isn't there like the school to prison pipeline?
I don't know. I'm surprised I'm not in prison, to be honest. My school was crazy town.
Oh my gosh. If anything, you'd be locked up for
Come, my
life
lady.
for
Come,
stealing
my
too much
lady.
today with your Twilight shirt.
Let's go. Thank you.
Are you Team Edward or Team Jacob before we continue?
Since I was 8 years old, I've always been Team Edward. Like, I could not get behind Jacob. Okay, they're both really problematic, but I remember like viscerally being upset in like 2nd grade or something when I read New Moon and Jacob kissed Bella like against her will. Like, I was genuinely like so upset. I will never forget. I was on the drive to school. It was a foggy day.
Where were you when Jacob kissed Bella?
Where you been, Loca?
Or him imprinting on Renesmee? That was fun. That was really cool.
Oh my god. I've been wanting to do a Twilight video for a while. I actually have the book on my desk. I've just been so swamped, but I need to talk about it. The discourse needs to start up again in this fine year of, it's about to be 2025.
Wow. You're gonna bring up Twilight discourse halfway through the 2020s? I love that. If anyone's gonna do it, it should be you.
It's the roaring 20s.
No, literally. There are 2 edits to it. All right, so the first edit. I'm really sensitive to all this. Oh, poor guy. Because I had no feminine role models growing up, and my older brothers would often berate me. Only whores paint their toenails, only sluts wear that. I was so afraid of anything feminine as a teenager. That must have been really hard for him.
It's annoying because it's like you can't really like position yourself as the victim in this situation. Like, women were being called whores and you feel bad for yourself in this situation. It's just he's making himself a victim. Like, rather than be thinking about himself, he should be thinking about how those words will affect his daughter and how he's going to have those discussions with her so that she can understand and like know her worth and be protected.
It reminds me of like those dads that are up all night with their wives while they're giving birth, and they're like, oh, I'm so tired, I need to sleep. Meanwhile, his wife just pushed a whole baby out of her.
Famously, women do say that men will do anything but go to therapy. And in this case, instead of going to therapy, he's going to Reddit to ask strangers what they think about him body shaming his 5-year-old.
He specifically said slut shaming in the title. That's crazy. She's still watching Bluey and Coco Melon.
Let her have her moment of peace, dude. There's so little time for women to have any peace before those thoughts enter their brain, like the toxic, misogynistic thoughts. So why don't you let her have her few years of like where she's like incognito in her brain, like not fully there.
Right.
Just let her have her happiness.
Like she's in like such like in like a point in her life where she doesn't even know like about romance and like those type of feelings. Like
And
why are
that's
you
so
corrupting
cute
her
and like
in a sense?
innocent? Yeah.
Okay, well this next one, I just clicked it. It's from a family TikTok channel.
Oh,
and
yay.
This is along the same lines. Basically, this family of 4, husband and wife and 2 daughters, they're going bikini or bathing suit shopping at Target.
Oh no.
Ruh-roh. So it's a 3-minute video. I don't know how much of it we'll watch, but you know, maybe we'll wind up watching the whole thing and regretting our life.
Mila, which one do you want? Mila, do you want like a 2-piece bathing suit?
I need a healer.
Is there any 2 pieces here? Like a cute
What? No, you're not doing this one. My phone.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, dude, it literally has Elsa on the front.
I'm caught off guard by hearing the word One Piece so many times because I have brain rot, but it's cracking me up how stupid this guy looks. He keeps going like, huh?
This is his first time seeing a bathing suit, actually.
Yeah, his wife is literally just like, oh, do you want the 1 piece or the 2 piece or whatever? And he's like, what? Like he's never heard any of these words before.
Yeah, they've never gone swimming together, never went to the beach.
Not once.
They're so young. If I had to guess, probably like around 5 or 6. Like the other daughter who was slut shamed in the previous post, like they're not thinking of like how the bikini looks on them. They're looking at the pretty colors and the sparkles and, you know, the cute graphics on, you know, the chest or whatever.
It's not an adult 2-piece in any way, shape, or form. It's so kid-friendly. Like, I really, truly don't see anything wrong with it. It's cute.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's exciting. Like when you're growing up and you're picking out your own clothing and bathing suits.
Exactly.
This should be fun. This should be a fun, you know, growth, development moment. Shall we continue?
Let's continue. Let's see what happens.
No doubt, various as previously noted, get all the zone.
Vegas.
Mila, a 1 piece and that's it. And that's fine. You know what? You don't want to walk
Zone.
We should do
The wetsuit?
Moving on C.
No, she just went swimming.
Heads up, they're on B.
So it seems staged. He's not the best actor, I'm sorry.
However, I did believe it earlier when he was confused and kind of like dumb. I did believe that part, but now this is very telling. But as a joke, it's not very funny or creative because it's been done so much. It would only be funny if they were doing it in an ironic way. Like I could see someone doing a skit about this situation in a way that's like poking fun of the whole ideology that's kind of like forcing this like weird, mature, like, dare I say, like, you know, like sexual stuff on daughters.
Like, I disagree with the whole notion of like filming your kids, period, so I already hate this video.
Yeah, I don't think kids should really be online like that. Like beyond like you know, just like, oh, you know, the family pictures and stuff like that's cute. But like recording your kids all the time is like very, as an adult who's on camera all the time, like it's not really that great for your mental health. So as a child, I can see that being a problem.
And at least we know the difference between reality and, you know,
whatever
fiction.
this is.
Right. It's like the Truman Show. I know that reference has been made a million times, but like, they're growing up, they don't realize that it's not normal to film your kids 24/7.
Yes, exactly. I'm so confused by the way that we cannot learn. Like, we just cannot learn. Like, how long have people been doing this to their daughters?
Since the beginning of time.
Probably since they threw the fucking bone up in the air in 2001: A Space Odyssey. They're like dun 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 dun. Sorry. If you've never seen that movie, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
I'm sure someone will get the reference in the comments. Praise Nikki in the comments. Please reassure her.
Praise me.
I have an Am I the Asshole post. I know this is your bread and butter, your favorite.
Oh my god, thank you.
So this person deleted their account, so you know it's going to be good.
Oh, okay. They were humiliated off of the app of Reddit. Reddit's God-given app. Yeah. Oh, wow.
But the title is, Am I the asshole for punishing my daughters not like other girls' phase with a tiara?
I already hate this. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not going to give the verdict yet, but I'm sure you can guess it because it's in this video. It already starts off with, so I have the feeling that I'm the asshole here, but my wife is totally on my side, so I don't know. Some of you bitches are really dumb.
The wife?
Yeah.
It's on his side?
Yeah, so obviously this is a man.
This is a bunch of baloney already.
We've been having a lot of issues with our 12-year-old daughter lately. She's going through that horrible phase where she has to hate everything her mother likes just for the sake of it, and now she's beginning to act like she hates her mother. I think that's called your daughter finding her own personality and you guys being mad that she's not an extension of you, that she's her own person, and she's realizing that.
Yeah.
My finger hurts, sucks ass.
If she hates her mom, like, I'm gonna have to ask, what is she doing to make that happen? Because usually that's not the case if there's literally nothing wrong. And from everything that he's already just said, like, why can't she just, you know, like what her mother likes? Like, you know what? Even if she is going through that not like other girls phase,
that's part of growth.
Yeah, you can't punish that. You can't like full stop halt.
Right. It's like being 12 is hard. Like 12 to 18, that's a really difficult age. Like her hormones are going crazy.
What are badges for?
You know, everything is the end of the world in middle school and high school. Like give her a break.
Well, middle schoolers are like notoriously and factually like the worst people alive. So like if I see a group of middle schoolers, I'm like crossing the road.
No, for real. Teenagers are scary. Like, I'd rather be in a room alone with Pennywise than like a classroom full of teenagers.
I've just had so many bad experiences. The younger crowd out there, hi, I love you. But I'm sure you know, a lot of you guys are mean. I'm sure you know this.
And this generation of iPad babies growing up, oof.
Oh my, good luck, teachers and educators out there.
We salute you. Thank you for your service.
Good job. It's rough out there.
Anyway, I don't even know what to do with this child anymore. She's so disrespectful. She has this weird need to mimic her mom all the time. My wife is very, for lack of a better word, spoiled, and I can't tell if my daughter is jealous of her or if she's just playing up the strong, independent caricature they force on girls nowadays. I want to hit this man in the face with a bat.
The strong woman caricature.
She's a 12-year-old girl trying to find herself. Give her a break.
The caricature of being a strong woman, you know, something that doesn't exist.
You know, the front that women put up. They think they could be these strong, independent people.
This is a lie being spread by the woke mob that women are strong.
No, really. Like, this was 5 years ago, but I'm sure if he posted this in 2024, that's exactly what he would say.
This reminds me of Ben Shapiro when he was like, Princess Peach wears pants. She's supposed to wear a dress, but now she's wearing pants?
Dude, this isn't 1940. It's legal for us to wear jeans and pants now. Well, my wife works in the fashion industry, and my daughter has been making a lot of snide comments about how she's better than her mother because she doesn't need to be pretty. She kind of ate with that. I'm not gonna lie.
I know. Honestly, who is this diva?
No, this is a mother in training. She also comments on our marriage dynamic. Trouble in paradise. Now, I've always been a fan of creative punishments. She called her mother my servant the other day, so I made her do some chores to see what an actual servant does. I think she's just eating you up and you're mad about that, sir.
I think she's clocking them.
She's
clocking them. I think she like senses a divorce incoming and they're like, fuck.
Right. She hears your fights from her bedroom.
She sounds smart. Like she sounds really smart that she's like questioning their marriage. Like this is
very observant for a 12-year-old. No, I kind of love her.
Seriously, I mean, I can understand getting punished because she called her mom a servant.
Right.
I could totally get that. And like doing chores could be like a good lesson to learn. I just think there's other stuff going on afoot that makes me like take her side regardless.
Oh yeah. We have a cleaning lady and the kids don't really do much, so it was kind of novel to her. She made a comment when I told my wife to go get me a beer. Yes, I could have asked, but it's kind of sexier not to. So I made her go bring her mother a drink and apologize. Get me a beer, woman. And the 12-year-old's like, hey, that's not nice. And he's like, F you.
He says to his wife to get me a beer, and then he wonders why his daughter called her his servant.
Asking your partner to get you something isn't inherently wrong, but it's like the way you go about it, and clearly she's noticing a pattern in the way he speaks to her mother. So if she's 12, she's like 17 now.
Oh.
So she can move out soon. We're rooting for you, Queen.
Oh, wow. Yeah, get out of there.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm just like reading back the last sentence. Yes, I could have asked, but it's kind of sexier not to. As in, like, instead of asking to get you a beer, he's telling her to get him a beer because it's sexy.
Why are you trying to be sexy in front of your daughter? Serious question.
Truly. He's the sex appeal of a tractor. I really don't get this anger, but I've been told it's semi-normal. Now, one thing she absolutely hates is the word princess. My wife, on the other hand, grew up as her dad's little princess and really embodies that. So I do call my wife princess sometimes, but it's usually mockingly.
The dad calling her princess.
Your dad sounds like a fucking asshole.
Her husband calling her princess in a sexual way pipeline is actually, I think I have a bacteria infection.
No, really.
I think I need antibiotics.
This is giving me a UTI. The other day, I called her that and Bill Moore in a really nice way so she'd do something for me. And my daughter had to make another comment about how she doesn't want to be anyone's princess. Well, I was getting gas today and they had a little like dollar store quality tiara. So I brought it home and waited for her next comment and told her that she doesn't have to be jealous of her mother. She can be a princess too. I was hoping she'd find the humor in it, but my daughter cried and now I feel like a massive asshole. Cause you are.
I volunteer him to be like the first person who goes to live on Mars. And he can get on that live camera feed and let us know how it is from over there.
Yeah, shoot him into outer space. Did Elon Musk write this? It's giving Elon vibes.
No, there's no way that's true because he's not in his children's lives. So, like, at all.
You're so right.
Another deadbeat dad on our roster.
And the mom sounds like a victim too, but she's also very complicit.
She's complicit and she's also enabling. Like, yes, I support this punishment, and like, I'm not loving the sound of this.
I hate
at all.
That was the last sentence. It cuts off there.
Oh, really? Wait, so were people like busting his ass in the comments?
Yeah, it had 86 upvotes and 113 comments. Should I read?
Yeah,
One of
Let's
them?
get some of those top comments in here.
This one person said, independent caricature they force on girls nowadays, like quoting that. That tells me all I need to know. You're the asshole. Absolutely, you're the asshole. You're not trying to connect with or understand your daughter. You're trying to turn her into the same submissive, hyper-feminine woman your wife is. She's trying to find her own individual identity, and she is choosing something that is clearly lacking in your household. And you're punishing her for it. You and your wife are terrible parents, and your punishments are going to push her further from you both. That's true. They're going to wind up in the nursing home in 30 years.
Dude,
and you
you guys are you are so you better hope that's a good nursing home, man. No, that comment though, like, that's too easy. That's too easy. Like, they really got his ass, clocked him. He's fucking dead.
These are the parents that don't view their children as people.
Just like forcing their personalities and dreams onto their child, like wanting them to be in this hyper genderified nightmare. My brain is like shutting down from this information.
I mean, I think we've said all that needs to be said, but I wish this guy a very die.
I wish him an awful Christmas. I hope he doesn't get anything good, not what he wanted at all. I hope his daughter gets all the best gifts. She's 17. What do 17-year-olds want? Olivia Rodrigo?
I just start Olivia Rodrigo merch. I'm 26 and I want Olivia Rodrigo merch. The Olivia Rodrigo Stanley Cup.
Cute. That would be so cute, actually.
Fortnite, anyone?
V-Bucks?
Robux?
Always a good gift.
You know how like a common talking point in modern feminism is about how men don't show their emotions? Well, you'll be happy to learn that this dad is openly showing his emotions on camera, but not for perhaps the reason you think or the reason that you expect or want. All right, we got this dude, this diva in a Spikeball shirt.
Epic. Okay.
So let's see why this dad is crying though.
Are you joking? Are you joking? Are you joking?
He sounds like a dog. He sounds like a fucking dog.
Why? But why? What's happening?
Moving. Move with it. We can't lose at this point. I mean, we could, but we better not. Enemies capturing.
The acting's better than the guy in Target, but still bad. Like at least he committed to the bit.
I actually did not. Is that true? Does PMS indeed like link up? Is this like factually based?
I think cycles can sync up, like if you live with someone long enough. So I assume that would also mean PMS, like the week before you're experiencing those symptoms together, because
that's a bonding moment. That's cute.
Right. I should be happy that his girls are that close, or will be that close, depending on how old they are.
I would argue it's actually way better. Like, if this is your fear for whatever reason, doesn't it make more sense to get it all over with at once? If all of them have synced up and they're all doing PMS at once, how is that worse than them all doing it at separate times and then like the whole month everyone is like in disarray? I would love it if they go through it as a unit. I just think that's so much better. Even if you're being an asshole, it's like, I don't want your PMS, because people, this is like the reason why they say, oh, there couldn't be a woman president, because what if they're on their period and then they decide to launch the nuclear missiles? Like, people severely overestimate what PMSing looks like. Like if you're like completely out of control as like a human being or something.
I appreciate the efficiency of the women in his family. They sound like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, for real. To get that all going, to just do it all in one swoop, smart. I think it's smart, and I think it's intuitive, and I think it's inventive.
He's not appreciating their intelligence. They're forward thinking, if you will.
Women in STEM.
Right. I have another Am I the Asshole post for you. Yay, exciting. The title of this one's from 2 years ago, and they did not delete their account. Am I the asshole for lying to my overprotective dad about going out?
Interesting.
I'm a 22-year-old female university student who is home for the holidays. My dad has always been overprotective. He never allowed me to participate in after-school activities that weren't academic related, no sports clubs, etc. I've never been allowed to date. The usual. The usual controlling dad behavior.
Never been allowed to date. That thing that happens to everyone.
While I've been living on my own, I've been experiencing freedom, and it's honestly great. So usually when I'm home, I don't have a desire to go out drinking or do anything at night, which I'm also not allowed to do. But since I've been home, it has been one quip after another about my weight. I'm exercising and trying to lose it though. But yesterday my dad decided to address my weight in front of guests, and I decided I needed to get out of the house for a bit.
Okay, there's already so many problems. You're 22.
This sounds like the dad from the last Am I the Asshole post. This is him in 10 years.
You're 22. You're not allowed to go out. You're not allowed to drink. Honey, you're an adult.
You're a victim.
If you can legally go into a bar, how can anyone tell you how you can or can't dress like that. This is obtuse.
If you can serve in the army, you can go to your friend's house.
Right. She can smoke cigarettes. She can vote. She can do the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy town.
Making fun of her weight in front of people, that's wild.
I don't know why. My brain like evaporated that part from like existing because I was just like too busy like targeting the other points. Yeah. Body shaming.
Yeah.
What?
If he was genuinely concerned about her health, that's something he could bring up in private. But it just seems like he was like, oh, you're fat. Like in front of like their entire family. Like what the is wrong with you?
Is this during the holidays? Am I imagining that she said it was the holidays?
Yeah, she's home for the holidays.
Seasonal. First of all, seasonal. But also that makes it even worse. That makes it even more mean because it's supposed to be so fun. She should have stayed her ass at school if you guys were going to be assholes.
Oh, I just read the next line. Now, I don't have a license because my dad doesn't want to teach me how to drive. Girl, I'm not saying it at her, by the way. I'm not victim blaming her. So I asked my friend from 2 towns over to come pick me up, but she said she couldn't drive that far and that she'd come pick me up if I could get halfway at least. So I organized a lift and told her to meet me at a bar at the halfway point. When I got there, I waited for hours until she eventually let me know she couldn't pick me up anymore. At this point, it was already dark and I'm at a bar, so I knew I couldn't ask my parents to come pick me up because they would be mad at me. So I called my cousin to come pick me up so I could stay at her place that night.
Things like this too, like not trusting your kid to this extent leads them into being in dangerous situations. See how she should just be able to call you? See how she shouldn't have had to sneak out and organize this whole operation in the first place because she should be able to drive herself?
Right. I was going to say something like, oh, why doesn't she just pay for driving lessons? But it's also like she's a 22-year-old college student. That's not accessible to her. College students are notorious for being broke.
Ew, he's just controlling her whole life. It's horrible.
Fast forward to the next morning, I tell my mom the truth and ask her to come pick me up, but please not tell my dad because he would be mad. She did come pick me up, but confessed she did tell my dad a made-up story of why I was at my cousin's place and not my friend's like I told them, because he would be angry at me anyway if he knows my friend never came to pick me up. But he saw through this line and is livid at me. He convinced I went out and got crazy drunk and lied to him about what I was going to do. Well, the only thing I actually did lie about was that I was going to wait at a bar for her to pick me up. Now he's threatening to stop paying for my studies and telling me he'll never trust me again. And as someone who loves her parents very much, this is heartbreaking to me. So am I the asshole for lying to my dad about where I was last night, even though I know I'm not allowed to go to such places?
Threatening to take away her education?
Because she went to a bar at 22 years old. That's crazy.
Oh my God. You don't even care about your daughter. Like, I genuinely don't think you care about your daughter or like love her.
He said he'll never trust her again. He never had trust in her to begin with.
In fact, I think he was waiting for her to slip up. I think this is some kind of crazy like thing where like he gets to like take out all his anger and his rage on her. Like, I think he probably is like more so satisfied when he gets her in trouble. That way she gets even less rights to have around the house.
She's more dependent. She's more beaten down.
He's like, great, it'll be easier to have her never try this again next time. That guy. I'm gonna put him down the chimney.
He's on the naughty list this year.
That's for sure. Some parents really are their kids like bully. It's
biggest hater.
Yeah, seriously. Like, you can't be a parent and be a hater. Like, you just can't. It's so crazy. And also, it kind of makes me wonder if there's some kind of weird enmeshment thing that he has for his daughter. Like, she can't date me or not. You know, she's my girl, you know, type of beat.
It's giving emotional incest, I'm not gonna lie. Like, very possessive for a father. It's one thing to like experience anxiety about your kids growing up and like dealing with like being an empty nester, but like this is taking it way too far and it's coming from a place of control and toxicity. Oh, I think this one might actually make me puke. I'm actually gonna cry.
No! Oh my God, no, what is it?
No, oh my God.
Dad proposes to 20-year-old daughter. What?
All right, let's
What is this? Sarah, will you wear this ring as a sign and a promise to God and to me to remain pure until the day you're married?
Yes. That is
watching. Okay, this ring will remain on your left.
Yes, officer. It's right there.
Oh my god. Ew. Okay, so I already like from the fucking get-go, like I already take issue with the role, like you need to wait till you get married to have sex. First of all, just besides that being a weird thing to like push on to people and like gross to like tell children that they like need to do and like dictate that rather than being like have safe sex, sexual education. I find it so fucking weird. I would find it weird, okay, if I had remained air quotes pure until marriage and then on the day I get married, my dad is thinking, oh, tonight's the night.
Right.
Ew!
Like, that's the first thing people associate with marriage. When marriage, there's so much more to marriage than just the sex part. Like, the commitment, like...
It's such a beautiful thing, but for some reason it means so much. Like, you have to question, why does it mean so much for this dad that she remains pure until the date of her marriage? Like, just imagine getting down on one knee for a relative of any sort.
Disgusting.
No shadows to hide in
And
now.
putting it like on her left ring finger, like that just like makes it another level of weird. Like, it's giving emotional insults. It's giving like he wishes he could be her husband and wishes he could be the one proposing. So, but this is his only way he can do it without it being illegal. Because incest is illegal. I think in 50 states, or at least most of them. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Let's do fact check.
1000%.
Is incest illegal?
Yes, please fact check.
It's considered a crime in all states, even if both parties consent.
Okay,
but the rules vary.
America 8.
America hasn't been this united since Kelly Clarkson won American Idol in 2001.
That was a good year. I mean, I don't know. I was like 3.
Besides, you know.
Oh my God, you were 3 in 2021. I was.
Get him, initiate.
That's 21.
Besides 9/11, 2001 was a decent year.
I mean, it seemed cool up until that moment. Zoolander came out.
You know,
love that movie.
Look at the bright side.
The 9/11 did happen, but so did Zoolander. So you give, you take, you get some, you lose some.
Yeah, I mean, you know, can't all be happy
all the time. Can't always be sunshine.
Right. Toxic positivity.
I hope that daughter is okay, like genuinely, because this is so weird. Like, I hope she's thriving and totally okay, and also just like threw her purity ring in the trash.
I think this might be the same person. Hold on, I have another TikTok from them. That my researcher, shout out to my researcher. I think these are the same people. But it's from her account. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is from last year, so maybe she...
Please say it doesn't get worse.
If you hurt my girl, you will answer directly to me. And whatever crimes I commit against you, remember, I have diplomatic immunity in 46 countries, including Puerto Rico.
Sir, you will find that the word fear is not in my vocabulary.
Perhaps. But it's in her eyes.
She looks like she doesn't even want to be there.
Girl, blink 3 times.
I know, no, like actually blink 3 times if you need help. Like, police. They should do a wellness check on these people, because this is... I'm not okay. I'm not even okay, and I'm not even there. I'm not even her.
I truly do hope this is a bit. I truly hope this is some sick f***ing joke. I'm not even joking. Like, Sarah, please DM me. That might be the worst post today.
It's not a good day.
This is worse than Boy Moms.
I didn't think it could be worse, but it is so much worse. Because, like, the thing is with these dads is, like, somehow they're creepier. Like, they're a lot creepier.
I think it comes from a more sexualized place with them as opposed to Boy Moms. Like, Boy Moms, they do make disgusting jokes, and, like, they shouldn't be let off the hook either. But I feel like these dudes are giving sex offender registry, like, stay 500 feet away from playgrounds and elementary schools. And, like,
seriously, because I feel like with the moms, they're like, their husband sucks, so they're kind of like trying to make their son into their like mini husband, basically, like with like kind of like treat them like they're a boyfriend. Whereas like here, it's like I don't know. The energy of them is just like very ew. It's just all sexual stuff. I don't know. And I could be like being misandrous like we were earlier. Like they are both bad, but I don't know. This is somehow worse. It's a hard way to end a Sinmas episode, but
well,
should we talk about something like happy to like end the video? I feel like the BPM of like this video like
plummeted.
It's
like the vibe just went down.
Flatline. Yeah, yeah, like flatlines. I feel so bad to leave y'all like on a sad note.
Comment one thing you're grateful for. Let's end with that. You start. What is one thing you're grateful for today on this lovely Sunday afternoon we're filming?
I'm grateful for coffee, as you would say it. It makes me really happy. It improves my day. Just love a sweet treat in the morning. What a wonderful thing. We've decided is normal. Yeah, get a sweet cup of liquid when you wake up. That's normal. Love it.
Why the not?
What about you?
I am grateful for, unironically, chocolate. Especially because I'm on my period right now. Like, my chocolate craving is through the roof.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for chocolate today.
Maybe next time we talk to each other, we'll have aligned in our PMSing.
Maybe
we'll
learn to be as efficient. Yeah, we'll learn to be as efficient as that one family. Thank you for being here, though. Thank you for letting me traumatize you slightly with these girl dad posts.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be traumatized with you all.
Absolutely. Thank you for celebrating Sinmas with me for the second year in a row.
Woo.
You know, despite it all, I'm glad we got through this together.
Merry Christmas and stay safe.
Where can the sinners at home find you?
Nikki Carrion on YouTube, just my government name, and Wabi Sabi on Instagram. I make tons of commentary videos about people that suck. So if you love learning about people who suck and me making fun of them, then you'll probably like my channel. And subscribe to Anna Marie because she's the GOAT.
You're the GOAT. You're the GOAT. Are you kidding me? No, you're the GOAT.
You're the GOAT. No, you're the GOAT.
But yeah, subscribe to Nikki. She's really the GOAT. Like her 2-hour deep dives are just incredible. So go subscribe to support her as she wraps up this Jeffree Star series and continues with future projects.
I need your positive energy.
Get her merch. What's your plug the merch?
NikkiCarrion.com.
Yes.
Yay!
And cop your exclusive Hello Sinners t-shirt and a bunch of other exclusive Sinmas merch at hellosinners.com. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a tiny, tiny thumbs up and subscribe down below. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for day 8 of the 12.
Advertisers don't want to touch things where they're going to get a...
Isn't that funny that Destiny, Ethan Klein, and Tim Pool are like this? Doesn't that actually strike anyone as odd? Whether you are from Destiny's community and you're like, why is Tim Pool saying this? Let me reconsider how invested I was in this false narrative. Or if you're an Ethan's fan base, doesn't that shock you a little bit or cause concern in your mind a little bit? When
And so it begins. Democrats now calling for more cultural dominance.
What the fuck? Investment in Hassan Piker? People are the reason, people like Piker are the reason they lost. So yes, they should work with him. It doesn't matter how well-funded propaganda is. Everyone knows propaganda. Fund the rich kid. They don't need it, do they?
And praising Hassan Piker, saying we must support individuals like this. Now, Fox News ain't pulling any punches. They say top Harris aide Height, who said America deserved 9/11 while plotting future for Dems. House Democrat called Hassan Piker a poster child for the post-October 7th outbreak of anti-Semitism in America earlier this year. Me, oh my. Well, basically what we're seeing right now is Democrats
Tim Pool is such a cunt. I wish he would. I just car accident.
The corporate press is no longer what.
I like that this is not something I've said, and it literally goes against what I also personally say all the time. That like funding me is not going to solve the Democratic Party's problems. And it's crazy that these guys make it seem as though like I'm the one who invited this, you know? They're not wrong. Yes, I am a dominant force in political commentary for progressive politics. That's correct. if there were more people like me, I think America would be objectively in a better space, especially in terms of political discourse. I believe that, okay? But it still would not change the dynamic between what I advocate for and what the Democrats want to do. That's the real problem. And for some weird reason, people don't understand that. They just don't hear that. I can yell about things all day, every day till the cows come home. But if the Democrats don't want to fight, and if the Democrats don't want to hear that shit, then nothing is going to happen. It's not going to change.
It used to be. And as I've been warning, especially in the previous video, the big players, Disney, Comcast, you name it, they are going to dump money in this space, and they will make sure that these voices rise to the top. Now,
no, they're not, dude. You're paid by Russia. Are they investing in you? No, dude. Dude, this is such a dumb question. No, of course they're not f***ing investing in me. What are you talking about, dude? What are we doing? Are we okay? You're just going off the winds of Tim Pool? No, dude. I wasn't invited to the Hunter Biden crack party at the White House. I wasn't even invited to the Hunter Biden crack party. I got kicked out of the DNC. Just forgot about all this shit, it seems. I'm paid by you, ass. You're the one who pays my salary. Your subscription is how I get funded, okay? And maintain editorial control. It gives me the freedom to say whatever the f I want. It makes it much easier for me to say no to shit. Whether it be Poly Market trying to give me $1 million just for the fucking election.
I'm gonna have to be honest. I do not hate new Superman. I think James Gunn is probably the best director out of all these comic book
weird
movies.
you out when you see Fox is making shit up about you, or are you used to it by now? It doesn't really matter. Anyone that looks at a Fox News article like this and goes, "Oh my God, I am so upset. I feel like these guys are genuine actors here and not, you know, ideological terrorists," is a fucking baboon, okay? Decoy, thank you for the 5 gifting. And Day Tuesday, thank you for the 5 gifting. Day Tuesday, the PSL chatter. I don't think that there's anything here. Like, there's no motion in this.
I don't believe Hassan Piker is in the path of that trampling that's underway because he's too anti-Israel, I guess. Now, I think if you are going to play up, like look at Twitch in the adpocalypse where he is. Many people are blaming him for this. Advertisers don't want to touch things where they're going to get...
Isn't that funny that Destiny, Ethan Klein, and Tim Pool are like this? Doesn't that actually strike anyone as odd? Whether you are from Destiny's community and you're like, oh, why is Tim Pool saying this? Let me reconsider how invested I was in this false narrative. Or if you're in Ethan's fan base, doesn't that shock you a little bit or cause concern in your mind a little bit when you got Keemstar aligned with like that Nicholas DeOrio guy that looks like a Oreo, shaped like an Oreo rather, Destiny, Tim Pool, Fox News.
Destiny who fucked Nick Fuentes, which is like
fat shaming in there.
Sad on so many levels.
All right, it's time. It's time. Clap for the chatter. You, my friend, are woke of the day.
That angel statue is fucking sick. How can they kill this game? Fuck you, Ubisoft. I hope you're watching, Ubisoft. I want all of you, the whole fucking families, get to just walk into the ocean and fucking disappear forever.
I need to make like a
You're the worst gaming corporation ever. You don't know how to even. You don't even know how to make money. You know nothing about gaming. It's pathetic.
Suspension. But before I deliver it to you, what are your final words? Humor has no place here. Okay, I've reduced it to 1 day. I don't think you were trying to joke. I think you were being serious, but God, I'm such a bitch. I can't do it. I couldn't do it.
Let's roll, baby. The left is going to say they're defending Israel. The right, well, a lot of people on the right are going to say they're defending Israel too.
Isn't Tim Pool also defending Israel? Like, I'm confused. I thought Timothy was, I mean, anytime I've heard Tim Pool talk about Israel...
All these assholes have incoherent political views.
Ukraine is the greatest enemy of mankind, you know, like that type of shit. it's like shocking to me that when it comes to Israel, he doesn't have
The inconsistencies in their beliefs don't register in their empty fucking skulls.
Almost always sidestep that conversation. I think you were joking about that didn't have a place there. No, I'm just talking specifically about Tim Pool's own personal opinions on Israel. He rarely ever has like a well-formed perspective on that. It's just maybe he's just waiting to be paid. I don't know. It's weird. He's not a centrist on anything else except for Israel. I wonder why. I don't know.
Let me put it this way. Corporations don't care if it's Israel or black people or gay people or otherwise. Corporations don't want shock and defense regardless of where it comes from. Now, the people who are very Israel-centric, or against, are going to claim that they are the perceived victim, whatever it may be. The reason why I think Hassan Piker is not going to be chosen in this regard is because corporations are going to say he evokes too much negative attention as it pertains to offense. Now, if you're a channel that's critical of some things, maybe gay marriage or like that, you'll probably still get some advertisers, but it's a sliding scale. You can be critical of Israel and there's no problem. Some people certainly exaggerate and say that, no, you can't, they'll come for you. It depends on what you're saying.
What is this from? What publication is this from? Let's see. Probably from some fucking psychotic right-wing dog shit, which is what Tim Pool always fucking cites.
Saying in your criticism. Like, you know, the things Hassan Piker has said about October 7th and his stances, they go.
Oh, really? Oh, really? You have issues with the things I've said. This is the only purpose that Fox News articles serve, for people who are pro-Israel to basically go, oh, I'm critical of Israel, but this guy takes it too far, you know? And it's like, why am I taking it too far?
Yeah, what's the too far
because
part?
I say that Israel is objectively doing a genocide.
Incoherent dog shit. All these fucking liberal Zionists have incoherent politics. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Contradictions are fucking stark, but they're either too stupid or just completely unwilling.
And it's always suspicious, like 15 seconds.
To fucking
completely
notice
devoid of the context. Like, am I pro-Israel? Am I anti-Israel? Who knows? No, nobody knows. We just know that he's pro-bad things. Look, what level of hating is how you don't like Democrats, then get mad that they like you? I mean, he's just doing what a lot of other content creators do when, you know, the end of the month is nearing and they want to pull on the monetization button. When Ren is do a Hassan video, and maybe you'll be able to get some views off of that. Now, the problem for Tim is his view counts are dog shit. So I don't even think I give him, well, two reasons, two problems. One, his view counts are dog shit overall, so it's not really pumping that, it's not really pumping those numbers for him. And the second problem is, and I think this is the more interesting issue across the board, and I've noticed this, Fuck Hassan videos don't have that same fucking hit. It doesn't have that same oomph. It really doesn't. The market is flooded with the Hassan is bad and he's evil and you should hate him and you should want to style videos. That there honestly isn't. There's really nothing there to hit on. Yeah, it's a saturated market filled to the fucking brim with recycled content and commentary. And I think that people have already made up their minds, right? Like, you're tapping into the same vein. There's a finite amount of people who date me, and they only have so much time throughout their day to watch the same exact Fuck Hassan video. I think post-October 7, a lot more people on the fence got suckered into those kinds of videos. Yeah, but they've slowly come back. If you notice, like, I lost a third of my audience after October 7th, straight up, okay? And I think at that point,
I don't even know. I don't know how to work this ultra. I don't understand what it is.
And they could not comprehend how I would.
And quite frankly, it's pissing me off.
Say this is only the barbaric Arabic rapist monsters that are doing this, and no other party is responsible. But I think a year of genocide has caused people to maybe develop a better understanding of the power dynamic at play. So I think that that's what happened. Because as we always say, being a leftist is right, but being a leftist is simply too early, you know? You went from 50K to 30K or got back since then? No. I went from 30K to 20K like sub 20K, and now we're back up to 30K and even higher usually.
Go a little far.
You're switching to defense.
And I'm not
Did
saying
you
it's
also say
extreme.
wrong things about the Amsterdam happening? This is the mindset, I think. This is the most knowledgeable Hassan Abi questioner. Like, doesn't even know what he's talking about, has heard someone else. This is basically someone summarizing a drama slop video that they heard, that they weren't really paying attention to, that they tweeted out, and then a third party read that tweet to this person. Okay, it has been reduced to, didn't you say also wrong things about the Amsterdam happening? I wanna investigate a little bit further without you Googling and finding why you feel this way, if you could. What do you think happened in Amsterdam? Do you know what my commentary was on it? Because that's yet another story of me being right, but too early, I guess, because there was no pogrom that took place in Amsterdam. No, that's why I ask. There was, okay, well, Western media immediately jumped on the opportunity to present, to tie Israel back to Judaism falsely, and also to present Israel as a victim in the sea of all of the negative coverage that Israel is getting because they're doing a genocide. So many of the Western outlets basically took footage that was happening on the ground of like Israeli Maccabi Tel Aviv football hooligans instigating a race riot in the streets of Amsterdam, and made it seem as though scary Arabic Muslim migrants living in Amsterdam were actually on a hunt for Jews, a Kristallnacht style situation. It turns out that it was a classic European style football hooligan fight that took place, and it literally was not a pogrom. I looked at the situation, I analyzed the facts on the ground. I saw that there were independent journalists that were literally saying, these outlets are using my footage to make it seem like the perpetrators of these acts are Arabs and the victims are Israeli football fans, when it's quite literally the opposite. It's Israeli football fans that were seeking out Arabs to beat the shit out of them. And I correctly covered it.
Which is very soccer hooligan-y to do.
Germany media reports recently it was a planned action from the Arabs. Yeah, of course German media says that. They're fucking the most rabid Zionist freaks. Yeah. The mayor of Amsterdam also apologized after the fact for falling victim to the propaganda. Yeah. Germans are pro-fascist unconditionally. They're universal pro-fascist supporters. So I think that they see what Israel is doing and they're like, yeah, very nice. We love this. I love the rules. I love the rules and also this genocide. Fascist genocide. I like it very much. Yeah, the CR vote has failed, predictably. Anyway, let's continue with some of
they go far in one direction. For a lot of people's complaints to Israel, they make it their whole identity. Advertisers don't want to be associated with something that's going to cost them money. So if you are talking about race issues and you're hyper-focused on crime rates of the black community, you can talk...
Wait a minute. Fact check from Deutsche Welle. Amsterdam video doesn't show attack on the Israelis. Violence broke out following the Europa League match between Ajax Amsterdam and the Maccabi Tel Aviv. A video showing the riots was misinterpreted by many media outlets. Deutsche Welle takes a closer look, yeah. And it turns out that the Wall Street Journal claimed that Israeli soccer fans were chased and beaten in Amsterdam in what Israeli and Dutch politicians called the anti-Semitic attack. It turns out that that was false, yeah. So maybe you should stop reading Der Spiegel and see Deutsche Welle if you're looking for the German media's interpretation of such things. It's like coming to me and being like, excuse me, InfoWars said it was a pogrom. And that is a reputable institution, sir. People were yelling at you about your coverage over Amsterdam. And Fox News says you're a terrorism lover. Yeah, I guess I am. I don't fucking know. Okay.
Talk about it, nobody cares. But if it's all you talk about, advertisers are going to say no.
I just got better at it.
Democrats probably won't go this direction. That's probably why Fox News is criticizing them. But they are going to go for many of these other liberal creators who I'm not going to mention because I don't want to give them any airtime on that regard. Fox News says Harris's former deputy campaign manager, Rob Flaherty, said during a recent interview that Democrats are losing hold of culture and laid out a strategy for them to develop a whole thriving system ahead of future elections. We need a whole thriving ecosystem. It's not just Pod Save America, though I think we should have more of them. It's not just Hassan Piker. We should have more Hassan Pikers. It's also the cultural creators, the folks who are one rung out, who influence the nonpartisan audience. Those things all need to happen together. The reality is, it's not going to be big media organizations. It's going to be a network and constellation of individual personalities, because that's how people get their information now, he added. Flaherty, who previously served as the director of digital strategy for the Biden White House, is likely to face backlash for calling for more Hassan Pikers due to Piker's past controversial comments. He had previously raised more than $1 million for Palestinian aid, used his platforms with millions of followers to...
See, our vote did pass. Yeah, in September 26th. Look at the title that you sent me, the article. Look at the title article. It says, Congress enacts a continuing resolution to avert government shutdown through December 20th, 2024. Now, look at your phone. What does it say? What is the date? It's December 19th, which means there is one more day for this continuing resolution. The actual thing that happened was that the Trump-backed continuing resolution bill failed the House with 174, 235, and 1. A stunning 38 Republicans ignored Trump and Speaker Mike Johnson and voted no. The bill was considered under a fast-track method that required 2/3 for passage. Not only did it not get 2/3, it didn't even clear 218, a simple majority. An inauspicious start to Trump's reemergence into the legislating world. We've got a long way to go.
Downplay and justify attacks such as October 7th and 9/11 as acts of resistance in recent years. Yeah, he said something nasty about 9/11. He said nasty stuff about Dan Crenshaw's eye.
I did.
A little crass.
Little
During
crass.
2019 live stream.
Little crass. He should only stick to saying nasty things about Ukraine. He should stick to saying nasty things about undocumented people and trans people. Why is he being so crass about Daniel Crenshaw?
Piker praised the brave effing soldier who wounded Dan Crenshaw while he was deployed in Afghanistan as a Navy SEAL, asking, didn't he go to war and literally lose his eye because some mujahideen, a brave effing soldier, effed his eye hole with their D? Yikes, man. Is that what Democrats are going for? Holy...
Yeah, I did say that. That was funny. Now, of course, I know that's not what happened. It was ID. But my point was, Dan Crenshaw should know better than anybody else that you shouldn't be sending other American men and women overseas, considering that he had the ultimate penalty, losing his fucking eye in the process. Now he uses that wound. To, send other people overseas. I think that is fucked up.
Smoke. Look, this is what they're going for. They're praising the murder of that CEO. This is what they're going for. He wanted to say that America deserved 9/11, saying before later walking it back, saying it was inappropriate.
Nope.
However, in another stream this year, he joked about 9/11 again, saying, oh my God, 9/11-2 is going to be so sick, and give Saudi Arabia a nuke so they can do 9/11-2. Wow,
This is not... Dude, Fox News is so funny. They literally wrote this as though it's like I'm in favor of it, and I'm not actually against arming Saudi Arabia with nukes. Also, hasn't Temple advocated, maybe he doesn't understand because he literally thinks that because he thinks average citizens should have nukes. He thinks that I'm in favor of giving Saudi Arabia nukes. I'm not.
Jeez, dude. In another stream, Piker broadcast propaganda from the...
my pearls. I'm clutching them.
These, an Iranian-backed group in Yemen. So we get it. Okay, guys, I'm not here to rag on Hassan Piker. I know people don't like him. They're going to mention that Hassan said Hamas was the lesser...
Oh, I love that when he says that, because I do stand by that. That's not even a misattribution. That's not out of context. It is true. It's objectively true. It does not matter. You can fucking cry all day, every day in terms of targeting enemy combatants, armed enemy combatants versus civilians. Yes, Hamas is the lesser evil between the two. You might have a disagreement with that, but you can't disagree with facts.
Their disagreement is based on literally nothing. It just, the vibe, it's like, oh, come on. Everyone knows Hamas is the bad guys, so there's no way that they are the lesser of two evils. We just know that because that's what fucking, you know, because we're not reflective at all. We self-awareness as fucking human population. No self-awareness. Can you imagine that there's like millions and millions, billions of people who like don't have self-awareness? AI, please just take over. I'm ready for our AI robot overlords because humanity is dumb. And if they don't smarten up, they deserve to go. They deserve to be out, evolutioned out of existence.
Facts. That's just pure, factually correct information. So I love when people point to that. I hate when people will clip me out of context to be like, Hassan doesn't believe rapes happened at all or whatever the fuck, right? Like that I hate. I hate when people will clip me out of context on like Hassan wants rich women to get raped or whatever the fuck. And it's like all of that stuff is very frustrating for me, okay? That's not, I've literally never, ever in a million years advocated for any of those things, okay? You're a fucking asshole for acting like that's the case. But if you come at me and you say like, Hassan, you said Hamas is the lesser evil between Israel, I will always and forever repeat that factually accurate assessment. You can't just like simply rely on other people's assertions in the matter to make a convincing case. You have to dive into the data. And in that situation, you can't, like, there's no arguing against the fucking data. You know? Red flag. What is this?
His Twitch streams regularly hit more than 1 million views and often have as many as 30,000.
Yeah, didn't you fucking make a video about how it was falling off? Dude, what happened? Fox is praising
Oh my God.
Viewers at a time.
Glaze.
You know, we here at Timcast are rather proud of.
Dude, why are you even acknowledging anything this motherfucker says? He doesn't take the beanie off of his fucking stupid stinking bald head. He won't take it off. Why would anyone listen to anything he has to say, you fucking weirdo? You're fucking in your studio 24/7 with a beanie on your head. You're insane. When I was a kid, I wore hats a lot. Not as much as you crazy fuck. You bald bitch. Fucking, no one should take you seriously. No one should. Every word that comes out of your mouth is fucking suspect. Fucking fuck you.
Flying under the radar over and over again. For some reason.
Yeah, saying true statements with a shocked, smug tone is not an argument. Exactly. Thank you. Like, or simply saying, what a ridiculous argument, and then moving on. Okay, why is it ridiculous? People always love doing that, where they'll just like repeat the statement, but in a sarcastic tone and just move on. Okay, explain why. Tell me why you think Israel is the lesser evil. If that's the case, you know what I mean?
We rarely ever get mentioned. I think I'm good at hiding in this cave and not doing external press. Though I do think, you know, our media strategy is largely that has to change. I want to talk to you about where we're currently at.
Oh my God, he kind of feels. Is he a little jelly bean? Is he a little fucking jelly bean that I'm getting some press coverage? Dang.
Yeah, and why this story is big. This is the war, my friends.
Tim, you got a lot of news coverage recently, like a couple months ago. You know, there was a federal indictment. You were
Russian asset.
Very quickly made it seem like he was simply a victim. Played it cool by the big, scary Russian government using a Canadian subsidiary.
Media is coming. They're praising Hassan Piker. It's exactly what I predicted. We are going to see more of this moving forward. I got a response on the comment section from Candace Owens about what I said. And I think there's a lot to bring up in this, so I definitely want to get into more things and arguments in the point she's making, because I'm not saying she's wrong at all.
The Israelis and Palestinians are both ethno-nationalists, right? Isn't it better for us if they're just dividing rather than trying to rope their diaspora to what effectively is a totalitarian identity? That is an insane way to approach the situation. It's like saying, well, the IRA and the fucking British Empire are both ethno-nationalists. Let's not get ourselves involved in this. Excuse me, Don't you think that the ANC's militant factions are actually engaging in anti-white efforts, just like the apartheid government is implementing anti-black initiatives? I mean, these are two sides of the same coin.
Capture
It's like,
zone contested.
yeah, dude, they're not, okay? They're not. It's ridiculous. Israel is the responsible party here. Israel is the militant state with nuclear arms. Israel is being backed by the wealthiest and most powerful state on the planet, the United States of America, that offers it both social and political cover, and also an unlimited amount of weapons. Any sort of emancipatory effort against that is infinitely more just than the efforts of dominating this population, this indigenous population. It's ridiculous to look at it and go, they're both ethno-nationalists. Just like the FLN was not simply ethno-nationalist, or the IRA wasn't simply ethno-nationalist, or the ANC simply wasn't invested in the affairs of black people. They had a righteous cause in that circumstance. Against terrorism, oppression is real against terrorism. Yes, yeah. Jewish liberation groups at the Warsaw Ghetto seemingly have some ethno-nationalist interests in emancipation. I don't know. Shouldn't we just let them fight? Would be a ridiculous argument, right? I think you understand. Yeah, the Viet Cong are ethno-nationalists.
Well, I largely agree with her. And the issues at play and where we go media-wise. With the Democrats calling for more Hassan Pikers, I'm going to reiterate, Brett Cooper launching her own channel is a good thing. Certainly.
Good one. Hassan Abi, the media is praising you while you're reading an article that's shitting on you. Yeah, so the thing is, the reason why Fox News is shitting on me is because the media, or not even the media, but like a high-up person in the Kamala Harris campaign was praising me in a Semaphore article. So they're like using me as a way to attack the Kamala Harris like digital media person. I'm not the real party leader. I'm not the real villain. The real villain is the Kamala Harris campaign, is what they try to present it as. But I'm simply being used as a tool in this counter messaging campaign. It doesn't really matter. There is no real motion here at all. It's not. It's very stupid. No, the Democrats are not widely calling for more Hassan Abis, but Kamala Harris's deputy campaign manager did. He very openly, very clearly did say that.
You wanted her to retain the map.
I'll be honest though, any day that I piss off Fox News is a good day to me. Any day that I piss off Tim Pool is a good day to me. It just is, or used to be, more heartbreaking when I would see people who also brand themselves as liberals, not like Tim Pool, but like actually actively defend the Democratic Party. When those guys are also fucking doing this shit, then it's like, ugh. Because their audiences do have some like-minded progressive individuals every now and then before they see the truth, before they see the light. They finna make you an industry plant, Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Your detractor is calling people's love of Luigi the Hassan effect only liked because hot. I do love personally when my haters, my biggest haters, will actively say, oh, you're just only liked because you're fucking hot. It's like, thanks for saying I'm hot. I mean, that's nice.
You're hot.
Massive marketing effort to Daily Wire. She's not going to, but I think she'll
No
go
gun necessary against the head.
Reagan replacing Brett is going to get the massive infrastructure of the Daily Wire.
Hey, this is no time to
is that what people are like? Honest question for those in the comments. Is the issue that the Daily Wire spends a ton of money promoting and building up this channel and you want Brett to have that capability? I think she's going to find a way. Having another Reagan is really good. It's really annoying how people just want Daily Wire to be evil. I always don't like the people who make their whole...
Oh, shit. Hey, yo. Austin Show in the building, dude. We just walked the fuck in, dude. Tim Pool is reading an article about me and he's mad.
What?
Fox News wrote an article about how the Kamala Harris campaign deputy manager was like, we need more Hassan Pikers. And then Fox News was like, Kamala Harris is, higher up in Kamala Harris's campaign is fucking talking about how you need more.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Fox News got real mad and they were like, he's a terrorist. He wants 9/11 too.
Who the fuck cares what Fox News thinks? Those fucking right-wing fucking bitches.
He's a 9/11 enthusiast.
What?
I'm joking.
Oh no.
He's not. All right. Okay. Well, I need.
What? What do you need to see? Wait, what? Do I have to check my text messages? Oh fuck! I don't know. Later in the day.
Anything for later in the day, dude? It's 4:50.
What do you mean? Yeah, I got like 3 more hours.
3 more hours. We don't have
Yes.
time for that.
Yes, we do. All right. I gotta keep going.
Check your phone.
I gotta keep going. I will check my phone.
Check your phone, 'cause they
Guys, you can criticize the Daily
gotta
Wire, you can
check
criticize Israel. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the people who
Now
are
I
obsessed
can't
with
be in your
nothing
phone.
but
I can't
Israel.
be
I criticize the Daily Wire in that vein. Okay? If you're critical of the Daily Wire, you're allowed to be. Not saying that. But we need more people in space. We need more investment. We need. They're outright saying they want more Hassan Pikers. But we want more Brett Coopers. We want more people who are going to be calling out the lies, the cheating, and stealing. And if we don't focus on like Reagan and Brett are of comparable cultural worldview, despite any personal drama or beef that people may perceive. I don't know. I don't care.
Don't dispute it.
What we don't want is more Hassan Pikers. Hassan's welcome to come on the show and debate anytime. He's going to stand by his ideas, but the Democrats start reinforcing that space.
We do not want more Hassan Pikers. Stop it. Once again, I hope that if there's any like Ethan Klein or Destiny fans out there
We're capturing
that
zone
hear Tim Pool
All
say
zones
that,
in enemy hands. No doubt for
just
nefarious
understand that you're
purposes.
in alignment with the Tim Pools of the world. You're in alignment with the Keemstars of the world. You're in alignment with a lot of people who I do not think represent your worldview or your best interest. I, on the other hand, regardless of how much people shit on me, I, on the other hand, probably do align with your worldview a lot better than these guys do. So make no mistake. Judge me by my enemies is what I always say. And this is part of the reason why I say that. It's who I have all the smoke for, okay? That matters.
We get crushed. They're going to pull in, Disney's going to have $1 billion in revenue, and they're going to say, let's allocate $500 million towards owning the podcast space. They already largely control a lot of it. And while they come out and say conservatives are well-funded and organized, that's just not true. The majority of these people who are quote-unquote conservative, independent, the biggest names in the space, largely independent, no big networks. Then you look at these other popular podcasts, and they're more likely to have networks and be produced serialized shows coming from the corporate press and legacy media. It's changing. Rumble's doing a great job. Daily Wire's doing a great job. The Blaze, they're there as well. But everyone's saying, what? You don't think they're doing a great job? The Blaze is doing all right, but they need to do more. You've got these networks; they could do better. So, in response to what we're seeing here, as it pertains to NDAs, I want to cover this and highlight this because Candace did respond based on my last post. For those that aren't familiar, I basically said that Brett leaving the Daily Wire is likely a contract dispute. They didn't come to terms, so she went to do her own channel. So long as she gets good advice and she knows what she's doing, she should be totally fine. I do have concerns about the launching of her channel as of yet. Without any content on it, that could be a big risk as it creates dead subs. I want to stress that because I hope people around her are telling her this. But a lot of people are saying that Daily Wire is this bad. Otherwise, they're saying, it's your friends. Yeah, I consider them to be friends. I think they're doing a great job, and I want to see them succeed. They're building culture. Rumble's doing the same thing. Where's anybody coming out telling me that I'm shilling for Rumble when I praise Rumble over and over again? And this is the funny thing. TimGuest.com is Rumble infrastructure. It's all our back end. So here's what I want to say. As per NDAs, there's something important to know. Candace responded when I said there's more to law than just what is written down. There's the court of public opinion. She said, maybe I misunderstood your intention when you wrote, at any time Brett can say anything she wants. Maybe you meant NDAs can technically be violated. They can literally be violated any time with consequences commensurate with your willingness to engage in such consequences. Candace said, parking that aside and speaking more broadly.
Dim tool. Do you think that the judge me by my enemies rhetoric actually works to persuade people? I think that it's important for people to understand where I stand. And I think talking about your ideological opponents in that regard is a good thing. And it's something that I bring up quite frequently when talking about Destiny, because Destiny spends a whole bit of time shitting on the left. It's actually, ironically, something that I criticize Cenk for as well. I criticize anyone who spends a good bit of time shitting on those to the left of them. I think that there's no reason to spend any time talking down to people that are further to the left than you. And every now and then I do yell about like anarchists or wreckers or whatever the fuck, but I think it's ridiculous. These people are utterly powerless, okay? myself included, we have no power. We have no influence in Congress. And I think that it's important because it shows
Sounds like more of a Templar thing,
you
but
really are. It
I gotta
shows what your
dominate
worldview
them
looks
then.
like. So much time specifically calling out, in air quotes, calling out those on the left, and the severity of your commentary for those that are on the left, the severity and the anger that you demonstrate when talking about those on the left versus like the conciliatory tone you take with someone like Ben Shapiro, specifically Destiny. Like, he is, it's shocking. Like a random trans person that has pissed him off on Twitter gets endless amounts of smoke. But Ben Shapiro is like, an intellectual giant that is worthy of respect. That's crazy. I think Ben Shapiro is infinitely more influential in terms of American political discourse, infinitely more powerful, and also infinitely worse for American society than some fucking random trans activist online. Okay? Even when a random trans activist online turns around and says, like, I'm transphobic or whatever, in a panicked moment, because they misunderstood the point that I was making, I still think, who cares? As content creators started moving right a few years ago, I've noticed them talking a lot of trash about you, and it made me want to check you out, and I noticed you were calling out people in power instead of marginalized people, and I've been listening ever since. Your enemies are a big part of the reason why I tuned in the first place. I think that there are a decent amount of people, that actually do get funneled in to my side of the world. He admitted he used kid gloves eventually because he wanted access. Yeah, like that stuff is gross in my opinion. Yeah, I think my haters do end up funneling people my way and pushing people my way. Especially because they just have so much hatred that it inevitably, I think, causes people to take interest. And then maybe, even if you're like a rabid hater, even if you're like a vicious hater, okay, you come in here and you're like, why the fuck don't people hate him in the same way that I do? And I think when you realize that it basically breaks your worldview, and I hope it gets you out of this weird cult-like place that you were in. Hey, you was mentioned in an interview with a Russian ex-opposition blogger. He called you a grifter, and he started learning economics to confront your Marxist ideas. Now he's an anarcho-capitalist, studying in a U.S. university and planning to be in U.S. politics. That's pretty funny.
Enemies attacking zone C.
I don't even know that this person exists on the planet, and yet I've had such a formative role in his political development. Pure resentment, pure spite has driven him into the throes of anarcho-capitalism. That's awesome. You know Candace Owens, buddy? Calm down. Oh, you're talking to Tim Pool? Yeah, why is he shitting on Candace Owens? Maybe he's just got that Daily Wire check now.
Broadly defined, the purpose of NDAs should be simply protect important company information. I make my employees sign one-pagers to protect information about addresses, contact information about my kids, etc. I've never put an employee under NDA contract because I was worried about them telling the truth about how I treated them. I think that is the core of the current NDA debate, disclosure versus disparagement. And at the heart of what Kanye was hitting at 2 years ago. Putting people under contract so you can treat them like ish. And
We're going for
the rest of the video is about Brett. Boo.
I wonder what he's talking about is Bush essentially made a massive idiotic video full of sophistry where he attacks Luna by basically trying to credit neoliberalism with anything resembling success in Vietnam, which is a very
enemies taking zone B.
Sort of weird thing to do for someone who claims to be a socialist, right? Like a socialist would take a bit more of a closer look at things rather than just saying line go up. This is because of neoliberalism good or something. But that's essentially what Bush did. So I'm going to do exactly what Bush did. I'm going to use exactly the same level of evidence that he did. What he did in this video, which I'm not going to go through, because it's 2 fucking hours long and it's a reaction. Right? So I've been reacting to a react. And I've had enough of that. So I want to refute one specific point, which was essentially trying to... Essentially, he Googled Vietnam GDP per capita and said, look, line go up. Line go up, neoliberalism, good. So let's take a look at that. Here is graph, GDP per capita, line go up. Now let's talk about why line go up here and also here, okay? So as I'm sure everyone knows, Vietnam was the victim of an incredibly destructive war led by the US empire in the 60s and 70s. That war completely devastated the country. It killed millions, destroyed whatever little economic base it had under French colonialism, and left the government to rebuild afterwards. The new communist government, which was not led by Ho Chi Minh because he was dead by then. And so generally what happens after a completely devastating war like that is line goes up, right? Because in the middle of like a fucking devastating war in which your country is destroyed and millions die, right? Line is going to be very low. The GDP line is going to be much lower than it was before that. Because obviously you can't get much worse for economic conditions than being in the middle of an incredibly massive, all-encompassing, destructive war. And then after that, you know, as I said, line tends to go up because there's a recovery afterwards, which always happens. It's not so much, you know, some sort of amazing economic miracle as much as just logically what should be happening after most wars, unless something terrible happens. So in this case, Vietnam was not just the victim of that war. It also had a lot of other shit on its plate. Apart from the country being completely destroyed and devastated by said war, Vietnam had also gone to war with Genghis China over its northern border, which was not very good for Vietnam, even though they managed to stalemate that war. And they also ended up invading Cambodia because Cambodia was crossing the Vietnamese border to massacre Vietnamese people and was also committing a genocide against the Vietnamese minority in Cambodia. So we have a country that only very recently managed to free itself from the devastating clutches of French and American colonialism that was completely destroyed, and then immediately assailed by another world power on its border, while also being economically isolated from the rest of the world due to massive Western sanctions led by the US, that also had to go to war with another one of its neighbors and a potential trading partner, so losing out in multiple ways by that. So there's really no way to emphasize how incredibly isolated Vietnam was during this period. Pretty much all that it had internationally was support from the Soviet bloc and trade with the Soviet bloc. Other than that, it was, you know, it was in a situation where it desperately needed to rebuild. And obviously, in a country incredibly devastated by war, you're not going to have everything that you need to rebuild immediately on hand, right? Not even in the countries the countries devastated in Europe after World War II, for example, was that the case. Hence, the US being able to gain hegemonic power over them due to the Marshall Plan. And those are countries that started from a much higher base than what Vietnam was, right? These were countries that were highly developed before World War II. Vietnam, before the war, was under colonial domination, a completely agricultural economy with no industrialization to speak of. So what happens after the war is that it takes a while, about 5 to 10 years or so, before things really get going. And this is reflected here in the already incredibly reductive GDP per capita graph, okay? So we can see here from 1985 to 1987, you have a massive increase in Vietnam's GDP per capita due to the obvious results of what I just said. After war, after multiple wars, in fact, regardless of the disadvantages the country was facing, it entered a massive period of economic rebuilding, of really just kind of not really so much rebuilding because there wasn't really much there, but, you know, meager efforts to industrialize, etc., which when we're basically talking about nothing, have a huge effect. So from 85 to 87, the GDP per capita literally more than doubled. This is before the later economic reforms. So what we have here is pre-economic reforms. We have very solid macroeconomic growth, at least by the obviously reductive GDP per capita measure. But I mean, that's what Vorst used. So I'm going to be just as lazy as him and use it myself. And then with the fall of the Soviet Union in the final years of the 90s, there's obviously a massive economic crash, a very infamous period in Vietnamese history. And the reason that this happened is because Vietnam was totally isolated. Because not only was it enemies with China and the Western Bloc, but now the Soviet Union collapsed and was no longer interested in trading with Vietnam, which was previously pretty much the only trade partner, the only geopolitical support that Vietnam had. Same thing happened in Cuba, by the way. Though Cuba dealt with its crisis in a different way by looking for different forms of inflows of foreign currency and promoting the tourist industry once more. Vietnam, obviously, very unique situation here. An incredibly poor agrarian country is not very capable of recovering yet again from another massive crisis when it just started recovering from the previous complete devastation and economic isolation that it suffered thanks to US imperialism a couple of years earlier. So when you talk about like Vietnam opening up, or I guess Vorsh and his fans try to frame it as neoliberalism, but that's because they don't really know what neoliberalism is, because Vietnam then and now is incredibly not neoliberal. It's an incredibly state-directed economy. Well, not so much state-directed, definitely state-owned. And the state dictates who can participate in this economy and how they can do it. That's something that is very much incompatible with general neoliberal theory, which is that the state cannot, the state can tell you how you can participate in the economy, though in a much more open way, but they can't tell you who can. There's this straw man that a lot of anti-communists such as Vorsh tend to have, where they imagine that socialist or socialist transition states want to be isolated from the rest of the world. Like they just want to be completely self-sufficient, like North Korea or something. But that's completely wrong. These countries need to trade. They want to have the option to trade with as many other countries as possible. I've said it before a lot on my channel, but Cuba, for example, would have loved to keep trading with the USA rather than being embargoed for 50 years straight. Why wouldn't they? It's just they trade in a different way. Rather than private companies engaging in the trade, it's state-directed trade, which is in many respects what happens in Vietnam currently still. So people are like, oh, Vietnam accepted the terms of the West under obviously extreme fucking duress, literally with no other option. It was either that or literally trade with no one, because the Eastern Bloc broke up and was captured in terms of policy by the Western Bloc, at least for a brief period during the 90s, which is what we're talking about here. So they had no option other than to try and negotiate some sort of way in which they could possibly begin trading with the West and the US especially, because at this point, obviously, the US is already the world's biggest economy. So these people are like, Vietnam started trading with other countries. Vietnam legalized small businesses. Vietnam allowed foreign companies to enter the country under its terms, often in a manner that is quite directed by the state. Now, is this socialism? Honestly, I don't really care. Because the fact of the matter is that socialism in one country, which is apparently what these people want Vietnam to be, like they think it should have just started a fucking anarchist commune or something while facing massive internal pressure from multiple fronts, not just from the Western Bloc, but also from China and from the fall of the Soviet Union. Like they think it should have formed a bunch of anarchist communes or something. I would like to see how that form of organization would hold up to all of this fucking external pressure against the revolution. But Vietnam had like basically an option, right? Like you have this incredibly agrarian state that had only experienced like 2 or 3 years of attempted industrialization in its entire history, which were fairly successful, at least if we go by this reductive GDP per capita graph, because we see literally doubling in the GDP per capita, okay? And you have a choice between doing something to be allowed to do very basic forms of trade with other nations that are required in order to develop your country in any sort of meaningful respect, unless you just want to be like an isolationist isolationist agrarian empire like fucking Khmer Rouge one or something, which good luck with that. Try not to kill 3 million people while you're at it. So obviously, they had to cave into some of the terms of the West. That's imperialism, right? It's an imperialist imposition on Vietnam. And even still, Vietnam managed to negotiate fairly favorable terms compared to many others who had to submit to IMF loans and to the US's terms to get Western sanctions removed, etc. Like they only, as I said, they only legalize small businesses. They refuse demands regarding privatizations. They refuse demands regarding the dismantling of welfare programs, of many workers' rights, etc., etc. So what they did was a selective influx of foreign capital into the country. Now, obviously, this is less than ideal in a supposedly socialist country. But the fact of the matter is that socialist projects like this have to balance the reality that they have to balance
Enemies taking zone B.
external and internal subversion. It's very, and like the sort of socialist idea. Sure, socialism as a system, as a world system, communism as a world system would certainly work. In one single, completely isolated country, completely cut off from the entire rest of the world, yeah, less so. And you have to consider that we're talking about a country that, very much like Russia, on the eve of the Russian Revolution, was not industrialized. It was even less industrialized. Russia had at least gone through the level of the first industrial revolution in some places like St. Petersburg. Vietnam had very limited industrialization in Hanoi and Saigon. Extremely limited, nothing like St. Petersburg. There's a reason why Lenin, for example, initially thought that it would be a good idea to implement a sort of fast-track state capitalism in the new economic policy. Because capitalism is obviously a required stage of development when you get out of feudalism. Now, Vietnam was not feudalist per se, but it was incredibly agrarian. It was sort of in a stage between like capitalist and feudalist agrarianism. Based more on smallholding farmers than typical feudalist structures. But still definitely not capitalist in any meaningful respect. Now, what I would like to say here is if you're arguing that Vietnam turned neoliberal and it turned everything around, you need to operate off the counterfactual. Like, what if, for example, the external circumstances didn't abruptly force a change in the Vietnamese program? What if the Soviet Union continued as it was during the 80s? Kept trading with Vietnam. The counterfactual are these 2 years here before the economic crash caused by the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989, which reduced GDP by GDP per capita by 5 times. The counterfactual is these 2 years where the previous, much more state-led, much more, incredibly limited private sector
Enemies attacking zone C.
increased the size of the country's GDP per capita, at least in that by those reductive terms, which again I don't like to use, but I'm happy to use them when my opponents are using them. More than doubled, right?
Enemies taking zone B.
The fact of the matter is that the so-called market liberal, whatever you want to call it afterwards, in reality, Vietnam is just self-evidently not a liberal country, not economically, not socially, not in any way, shape, or form.
Got the zone.
Not politically, not economically, not socially. But there is no period post-reform that even remotely touches these 2 years here. That's your counterfactual. That's what you're comparing this to. If you want to argue that neoliberalism saved Vietnam or something, we need to compare it to what would have happened if Vietnam wasn't forced into the fairly minor capitalist concessions that it gave due to circumstances that were far beyond the country's control. And that's your fucking counterfactual.
We're rolling on B.
The fact of the matter is that the reason for this growth after this period of economic crisis post-Soviet Union has practically nothing to do with the actual reforms themselves and more to do with the fact that Vietnam was starting from basically nothing. It grew after the war, as you would expect, because the point after the war, after the war with Cambodia, after the war with China, etc. Because as you would expect, when a country is completely devastated, after that devastation finally ends and it has a modicum of stability, it's going to get slightly better. Okay, and that's what happened. So everything here, if you want to attribute that to neoliberalism, you need or capitalism, or whatever these people like to do, we need to think about the counterfactual. Like, okay, what else would it, like, if the Soviet Union had continued, which I think is fair to assume, I think it's fair for hypotheticals, because obviously that was out of Vietnam's control. Vietnam kept trading with it, kept developing along the lines that it was beforehand. What would have happened? And I think, just looking at this, you could easily say that it would have been basically at least the same, possibly better. So you can't attribute this to capitalism, so solely to its minor market reforms. This is what happens after a devastating war. Things get better because obviously you're not in the middle of a devastating fucking war anymore, or multiple devastating wars, in fact. Like someone like Bush is basically just trying to get an easy gotcha on Lina Oi. Now I think Lina Oi is obviously a Vietnamese nationalist, but her perspective is nonetheless very valuable because it's not something that we hear about very often in the West. I do think that she's a bit too, you know, she likes to get very angry over whether Vietnam is socialist or not, but I think that's besides the point. Because socialist is a transitional phase. Socialism is a transitional phase. A country that calls itself socialist or whatever you want, when it's you know, one single small poor country amid a sea of opposition to what it's doing, it's very difficult to realistically continue along Puritan socialist lines. And the people who demand that or expect it are just completely insane and do not have anything resembling an actual actionable ideology that has any place in the real world. I think people get too hung up on whether these countries have systems that technically qualify as socialism, as in do the work is literally only means of production themselves. Obviously not. And I don't think that the state controlling them qualifies as being that either. But I don't care also. I don't give a fucking shit. Because the fact of the matter is, they're not in remotely at any sort of stage where they could do that, even if they wanted to. So talking about it is fucking moot. They're essentially under siege. Under siege by countries that want them to immediately implement capitalism and completely dismantle whatever little bit of the revolution that might still be there. So if you look at these countries, and all they have to say is, it's not technically socialist by this two-sentence definition that I have here. Rather than looking at socialism as a much more dynamic transitional phase to better forms of socialism and then better forms to like a final stage being communism or you know, your fucking anarchist commune shit. You're just a child. And you're not in this because of any real sort of actionable politics. Rather, you're just in it as some sort of club or something where you can think about how incredibly awesome and pure you are. Especially, you know, these people especially love to talk about how pure they are relative to like third world communists. It's easy to talk about that when you're in the fucking USA and you want people to vote for Joe fucking Biden for some reason, man. Same sort of shit with Cuba. It's like people are like, oh my God, why doesn't Cuba have free and fair elections immediately? Why don't they immediately implement liberal democracy? Do you think it might be because there is a country 90 miles away that has spent the last 60 years doing everything possible to subvert the Cuban Revolution, and every little inkling that it has gained materially, that its people have gained materially. Do you know what would happen if there was a liberal democratic election in Cuba? The US would fucking fund whichever candidate they like the most, do everything possible to manipulate it. They would not allow any winner other than the candidate who they wanted. This is exactly what happened in Russia after the fall of the USSR. The Communist Party was going to win the first real election, so the USA literally rigged that election. They rigged that fucking election so that Yeltsin would win. That is exactly what would happen if Cuba did what these fucking dumbasses demand of it, but even worse, because in this case, we're not talking about a tiny country right next to the USA, we're talking about the Russia on the other side of the world. So if the USA could rig that election and give Yeltsin the win, imagine what would happen in fucking Cuba. Not to mention that a liberal democracy is not even remotely the sort of political system that socialists should be advocating for. That would be a fucking regression from what they have now. You know, it's possible to acknowledge that protests in Cuba are not necessarily CIA or whatever, and also acknowledge that just immediately instituting a capitalist liberal so-called democratic system of representative democracy in Cuba, specifically designed, by the way, to stunt any possibility of actual democracy. Just whoever the US chooses is going to immediately fucking win that election, and they're going to immediately dismantle absolutely everything that Cuba has. They're also going to immediately seize a ton of Cuban state assets and money for the USA, because the USA has consistently refused Cuban compensation for probably like the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life happened. Some guy like made a Reddit account so that he could make posts on Reddit debunking my tweets on imperialism. Debunking tweets on imperialism. If that's not funny enough by itself, looking at the actual post is a fucking riot. And I think it's a really good opportunity actually to talk about a thing that a lot of people do, which is they really have very little understanding of how to critically analyze anything. Basically, they don't know how to think at all. But they do know how to make like these sorts of like vague appeals to like academia without actually really proving or even really engaging with academia at all, engaging with its debates, engaging with like historiography, with anything really. But they know how to like look at a Wikipedia article and like read an abstract. So they think, like read the abstract of like the first thing that pops up on like a Google Scholar search that they think said what they wanted to say. So they think like they're incredibly confident, and they think like they're some sort of like scholarly gods or something. Like just look at the thing this guy posted. Like I replied to him because everything he was saying was incredibly funny. Like he came in and like posted, like replying to me. And this is a fucking awesome opportunity to like just provide an example of this sort of thing. He's like, I've already debunked your awful tweets on imperialism here the way I said I would with academic sources. And he's just like saying, these sources are scholarly. Okay. Have you read them? And this one is the funniest one. Go ahead and try to have a field day with my exhaustively researched post utilizing dozens of high-quality scholarly sources, arguing for a position that is perfectly in line with the scholarly consensus. And like, if you Google this guy's name, he thinks he's a socialist streamer. I found his Twitch the other day. He thinks he's a socialist. His Twitch says, I am a socialist streamer. Provocative leftist. And he's like defending neoliberalism here. So like, for one, he fails at kind of the first hurdle here. He responds, debunking bad empanada's tweets on imperialism. Like, the premise here is so funny. Debunking tweets on imperialism. Final draft to be shared on subreddits. Oh my God, like the way that he's referring to this, he's acting like he's just finished like an academic article and he's about to submit it to journals. It's so funny. But anyway, let's look at the actual substance. Recently, the YouTuber Bad Empanada made a series of tweets complaining about so-called imperialism. Bad Empanada uses the Leninist definition of imperialism, which unsurprisingly is not used by any serious historians or economists. That's already wrong as a first letter. For one, economists just don't really talk about imperialism in the first place. For obvious reasons, right? They don't want you to know that it exists. But historians absolutely do use the Leninist definition of imperialism constantly. Like, did you check this before talking? One of the most revered historians ever, probably the most revered historian of the last century was Eric Hobsbawm, who used the Leninist definition of imperialism constantly. Just completely nonsensical. Why don't we search like fucking Google Scholar for like Lenin imperialism? The work itself has only been, or this specific version of it, has only been cited 5,000 times. You know, no one uses it. Hobsbawm definitely never uses it. Basically just falling at the first hurdle, like just saying what he thinks things are like and just assuming that's what they're like without even actually checking. For one, like, I don't think that serious historians, so-called, are really concerned about specifically branding things as imperialism or not. That's not really a question that people have. Lenin's definition of imperialism is more just a framework of analysis that is absolutely used by many serious historians, okay? But there's not like imperialism studies where people go around asking the question, is this thing imperialist or not? And he says here, unfortunately, Bad Empanada does not have any experience in economics. I literally have multiple videos specifically dealing with economics. And the truth is that there is an overwhelming scholarly consensus based on dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of peer-reviewed academic papers that the thing that we would consider to be imperialism or associated with imperialism in developing countries, free trade, globalization, strong property rights, and a business-friendly environment have been shown to be very positive for developing countries. One, that's not what imperialism is. Imperialism is not where neoliberalism. I don't understand. How the fuck this guy could possibly come to that conclusion. Imperialism existed before neoliberalism existed. Before the neoliberal dogma became dominant. Lenin wrote his definition of imperialism about 60 years before any country ever implemented anything that could remotely be called neoliberalism. So this is just nonsense. China, for example, instituted limited privatization of the economy and this so-called opening up to trade, which, by the way, is not explicitly neoliberal in of itself, without at least direct imperialist forces forcing them to do it, for example. Maybe there is a correlation between these policies when they're forced and imperialism, but it's completely possible. Or at least as a global system, you could argue, yeah, there's pressure from the global the capitalist global system to force countries to integrate into the capitalist global system, which is definitely a facet of imperialism. But you can't specifically argue this would be like direct imperialist intervention, what I would specifically argue when I talk about imperialism in a more direct sense. But let's see what he brings up for this overwhelming scholarly consensus. Now, firstly, so-called overwhelming scholarly consensus in economics is pretty much just in the UK and the US. Obviously, when you have a bunch of economics departments, which are, I've gone over this in my video on neoliberalism, by the way. You have a bunch of economics departments which are primarily funded by donations from businesses, whose primary objective has been to essentially justify the economic shift ever since the economic shift happens. That's why they swapped from Keynesianism to neoliberalism, which happened because specifically beginning with the University of Chicago and the London Institute of Economics, from which it spread to the rest of the world. And yeah, there are a lot of this, like him saying this is like a settled science or something, makes no sense. There's plenty of arguments about this still. The World Bank or the IMF, one of those, so I think it was the IMF, released a paper like 5 years ago, where they specifically said that the whole free trade, the whole globalization as a dogma thing, has been vastly overstated. There are plenty of highly regarded economists who are not neoliberals. Like Piketty, for his flaws, is obviously still a capitalist, and he's very well regarded among economists. So this guy is just like appealing to a vague consensus that, according to him, is unassailable, without engaging with the arguments themselves, without even remotely touching the counter arguments, and without even providing any evidence of this consensus. This is exactly like someone, like a liberal taking a dogma as fact without even looking into it for themselves. This is pretty much the epitome of pseudo-intellectualism, if it can even be called that. I think it doesn't even come close, doesn't even really try. So the first source that he provides: much research has been conducted on poverty, which has gone down across the board in an era where the world should be poorer than ever. Just how widespread so-called imperialism is. That makes no sense, for one, because imperialism was far worse before this present era of imperialism. We literally had direct colonization. Up until like the 60s and 70s, there was direct global European colonization. I think it's safe to say that imperialism was worse then than it is now, even though it's still obviously very bad. What the fuck is he talking about? So, like, of course, would the world get better after a bunch of countries are released from the clutches of a foreign power and finally given the chance to govern themselves? Yes, I would say so, regardless of what sort of policies they follow, just based on the fact that they aren't so directly being ruled by a foreign power anymore, even though they're obviously still being exploited in a lot of cases. That alone is going to result in improvement. So we already have a massive fallacy at the beginning here. The world is factually less imperialist today than it was 70 or 80 years ago. And that is because of in many cases, communist-led struggles against colonization, primarily. And he says, no matter what poverty line you choose, the share of people below the poverty line has declined globally. Now, what they're using here is essentially a bunch of IMF poverty lines, which do not account for anything local. Now, I would like to ask you a question. Could you live on $2 a day? In very few countries in the world, you could live on $2 a day. In very few countries in the world, could you live on $20 a day? In some countries, probably like a little less than half, you could live on $5 a day. In many more, $10 a day. Still, maybe around half. Above $10 a day, which is a very low bar, still not very many. So we have a poverty line being applied internationally, right? Without using direct price indexes, rather using purchasing power parity, which just makes an assumption based off GDP without really thoroughly engaging with a multidimensional poverty index for the subject countries. So for one, his idea of imperialism makes no sense. And for two, his justification of imperialism doesn't make any sense either, because less people living on $1 a day, living on $3 a day, living on $5 a day, living on $10 a day, etc., says fucking nothing. It doesn't say anything about what can these people buy with this. How are they actually living? Do they have a house? Do they have good education? Do they have good health care?
Adversaries drop bounties
Are they starving?
when they die.
Are they on the brink?
Take 'em out
Are
and
they like
scoop 'em
living
up.
paycheck to paycheck, as they call it? This answers nothing. To ask questions about poverty, the only way that you can, and by the way, a lot of the data here is just wrong. A lot of the data is pretty much non-existent. We'll go over that. There's a great economics explained session where he basically explains this. So, all of these poverty lines are completely invalid. They're not actually poverty lines. They're just gross income lines, basically, which means nothing, because they say nothing about how much this can actually buy for you in your local economy. If you want an actual, real, meaningful measure of whether people now can buy more than they did before the era of neoliberalism, which is what we're talking about. We're not talking about neoliberalism. We're not talking about imperialism. We're just talking about neoliberalism, which I'm fine to do. This is very easy to refute as well. You need to look at real wages.
Communism is based.
Real wages have not gone up almost anywhere in the world. And very few places have they since the era of neoliberalism. I think it's fair, firstly, that we look at let's look at countries that have factually been victims of US imperialism during this time period. US imposed neoliberal measures, specifically actual unambiguous imperialism.
I get it.
So Latin American countries where US supported dictatorships implemented neoliberal policies by force in no way that could possibly be argued as undemocratic from the early 70s onwards.
Our side's got
Let's
his
take a
first
look.
hot shot. Keep him safe.
The countries being looked at here are Argentina, Brazil, Chile, free countries where US dictatorships were specifically restored at the behest of US neoliberal policies. Colombia, Mexico, and Venezuela, which did go neoliberal, less coerced, but still they went neoliberal under a lot of pressure from foreign capital, which obviously involved facets of imperialism. Let's check real wages. So, we have average real wage, which is blue bar, the blue line. Unskilled real wage is the yellow line. As you can see here, we have a peak in the very early 70s, followed by another slight rise in the early 80s across all these Latin American countries, then a sharp decline, followed by just bare recovery to the peak. So what we have here is that before the era of neoliberalism, the real wage was, for all intents and purposes, equal to what it is now. What that means is what you're earning isn't actually more than it was back then. This is the same exact thing in the USA. This is not just affected imperialized countries, but also the USA, which has neoliberalism imposed, obviously not through imperialism, but through its own government. Same in the UK. Let's look at real wages versus productivity in the US. Very, very well-known graph. You cannot talk about this without dealing with this. Post-Reagan, real wages barely increase. Productivity goes way up. What that clearly indicates is, in the neoliberal era, and by the way, productivity hasn't actually gone up. It's basically been going up at the exact same rate as it was before, but real wages have stopped going up with it. So what this means is that there is stagnation in wages while productivity has not seen any real benefit. So basically what neoliberal reforms have done here, and this is reproduced in India too, an imperialized country, I'm going to go over that soon, exactly the same graph, you can see it in India as well. What this shows is that neoliberal policies essentially end up appropriating more money from the workers than what they were making beforehand and giving it to capital. That's what this means. That's literally what this gap represents. More money going to the bourgeoisie. Let's look at India, exact same graph, which is a country that this guy specifically cites, and I'll show you. He cites this as an example of a country that has apparently benefited greatly. He says here, China, India, and Bangladesh were once extremely poor companies, but after opening up to markets and getting rid of central planning and embracing the dreaded sweatshops, their economies grew massively. What does that mean? What does it mean when GDP goes up? I don't care if GDP goes up. I care about the conditions of human beings. The average human being in India cannot buy any more now than they could in the 80s. Okay? This is a fact. Real wages in India. By the way, if India is the crown fucking jewel of globalism or whatever, 80% of the labor force continues to be in the informal sector with no job security or protective labor legislation. Fucking awesome, dude. Let's take a look at India, which has benefited massively. I mean, it's benefited massively, sure. It's benefited massively in generating capital for corporations, most of them foreign. It hasn't benefited the lives of human beings very much. Real productivity has been going up in India. Just look at this graph. Has been going up in India pretty much on a similar pattern to how it was during the supposed... I don't think India was anywhere near as central planned as this guy says, but let's give him that anyway. Since the 80s, productivity has been going up. Real wages are literally at the exact same point as they were in 1982. They have not increased at all. It's a complete flat line. What that means is the average Indian cannot buy any more today with their wages than what they could buy earlier. What that means is, essentially, things for them are exactly the same, practically exactly the same. For all intents and purposes, exactly the same. Yeah, India was never centrally planned. That's a ridiculous thing to state. India as a country has basically been it's been anarcho-capitalism almost. India is a country where, as it says here, 90% of workers are informal. What that means is basically it's the wild fucking West, at least metaphorically. You guys know I don't like to use that. I shouldn't have used that phrase, but people understand what I mean by that, right? There's basically no real regulation because most economic activity is completely informal. And it's still fucked up. It's still stricken with massive abject poverty. So look, this guy has failed completely on the first hurdle. He cites like World Bank poverty line, which doesn't take anything local into account. Doesn't take anything regarding actual human welfare into account. Makes no sense at all. It's really stupid. Like, it's literally number go up, world more gooder. Let's see what else he cites. No matter what poverty line you go down drastically, millions of people have been pulled from poverty and destitution. Pulled from poverty and destitution. Meanwhile, their material circumstances are practically exactly the same. Some claim this was only in China. However, that is also false. He just you notice how he just links a thing without actually engaging with it at all. Let's look at his actual source for that being supposedly false. If we look at the source, right, an absolutely massive fucking amount of this comes from China. You see here, the starting rate for the world, not including China, this is, by the way, this is according to that exact same completely invalid, like $1, $3, $5 a day poverty line, which isn't actually a real poverty line. You look at this, it goes from 29% to 12% according to this if you don't include China. But in China included, it goes from 49% to 10%. That is such a massive fucking difference. Like if you want to talk about poverty reducing, you want to talk about material conditions improving over time, you can look at, for example, the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union experienced massive fucking growth from 1928 to 1970, for example. You know, number went up. Does that mean that, like, is this like objective proof that the Soviet system is like especially good or something? According to this guy's logic, it should be. So I guess I just made an irrefutable argument because number went up without considering any other factors. There's a great paper, I think it's a book actually, that specifically discusses GDP growth, at least estimated GDP growth. Another thing this guy doesn't apparently know is that GDP growth is estimated. None of these are actually objective. All GDP growth is completely estimated. Essentially, it's a crapshoot based off very limited data. Up until like the 70s or the 80s, most countries didn't actually do any sort of real quality accounting in this way. So you can't actually do this comparison. Now, Economics Explained has gone over this, and I want to play that segment here, just before we move on, before I forget to do it. I actually wanted to make a video on this exact subject because, yes, I do study a lot of economics, but he beat me to the punch and I just decided it was not worth it when he's already basically covered everything that I wanted to cover. Not Economics Explained, but Economics Unexplained or whatever, Unlearning Economics, I'm so sorry. Wrong guy, I called him by the fucking neoliberal guy's name. I'm sorry. This is the one that I meant. Don't look at Economics Explained. Look at this guy, Unlearning Economics. And he deals with this ridiculous China talking point, which is very funny. He really dissects how bad these arguments regarding China are. Okay, first let's watch this part, then we'll watch another part.
His response to Hickel on this point revealed a lot. The political agenda of Hickel and other far leftists is obvious. It's humiliating to their worldview that the data show massive improvements due to markets and globalization, rather than an overthrow of capitalism and global redistribution. Pinker also insisted he was siding with the experts and accused Hickel of being a Marxist ideologue. Whether you agree with Hickel or not, he is an expert on the poverty data, and ultimately Pinker was unable to engage on the detail.
You say widely accepted, but this is my point. You don't acknowledge in the book, there's no caveats where you say, for example, Professor Lant Pritchett, Harvard colleague of yours, a development economist who studies this stuff, says the poverty line shouldn't be $1.90, it should be $12, $15 a day. And when you make that simple statistical change, the entire picture of poverty changes, and the arguments in your book basically fall apart, do they not?
Wow. Do you see how easy it is to refute this dumb fucking shit where people just point to a line going up in an arbitrarily chosen poverty line that doesn't make any fucking sense at all? Like, come on.
No, I don't think so. Again, I mean, maybe by...
And Unlearning Economics goes into further detail here on excluding China specifically?
Change. This is the problem of relying on data. You change the measurement and everything changes.
Well, no, not everything changes because, I mean, there can be, I mean, that's a rather extreme redefinition. That's multiplying by a factor of 6.
Oh, he's one of the world's experts on the subject.
Well,
You're
yes,
not,
so
with respect.
It's multiplying it by a factor of 6? Yeah, why not? Do you think people can live on $1.90 a day? In most countries in the world, they definitely cannot. Are you fucking insane? How is that a better poverty line than the $15? It's not.
It's field. You could have included the caveats and said, look, there's a bunch of experts who don't agree that poverty is falling. You declare it as fact that poverty is falling. Plenty of development experts disagree with you, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, some do, but if it's a question of just absolute numbers, it's irrelevant. If it's a question of whether we should set the poverty level at $2 or $3, that's irrelevant. Over a wide range of estimates, the picture is the same.
Omitting China doesn't change the trend at lower poverty lines like $1.90, but as China has made the most promising progress at higher poverty lines, omitting it means even the proportion of people in poverty at higher lines has been roughly stagnant.
Do you see that? Change it to $7.40 a day, remove China. Poverty is exactly the same. What you clearly see here is that when you omit China, which is definitely not a liberal sort of free market economy in any respect with a good business environment or whatever, China, even after its reforms, is still has a very highly regulated economy with a principal role given to state-owned corporations that basically does whatever it wants to corporations when they annoy the government. It's definitely not a neoliberal state in any way, shape, or form, and engaging in global trade doesn't make it neoliberal. Every country wants to engage in trade with as many countries as it's convenient to them. China or even any socialist country like Cuba would like to, for example. That's not what neoliberalism is. It's not voluntarily engaging in trade.